Welcome, everybody. We're going to call our meeting of the Washington Central Unified Union School District Board to order at 6:35. Thank you for your patience. We were participating in the mentor event at U32, which was wonderful, and we all wanted to stay here, but here we are. So thank you for being here tonight and for your continued commitment. I see a lot of people from Worcester. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the people that are online too. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are all part of a deeply interconnected community. Our schools, including U32 and Montpelier, often work together, sharing athletic programs, resources, and most importantly, a shared vision of what it means to support and uplift our youth. What affects one of us ripples through the entire community. This week, we were heartbroken to learn, it was just actually last week, to learn the passing of Nathan Suter. While Nathan contributed to the Montpelier community in many ways, perhaps his greatest impact was as a beloved coach for the Montpelier middle and high school track and field teams. He worked with our kids too. The Montpelier coach from the Montpelier High School athletic director described Nathan as one of the most dedicated coaches ever involved in Montpelier youth sports. His presence was not only felt on the track, but in the lives of the countless students and families, including those in our own district. We feel the pain of the Montpelier School District and extend our deepest condolences to Nathan's family, friends, students, and colleagues. His loss is a loss for all of us. As we begin our meeting tonight, I want to reaffirm our commitment to providing you with the clarity and transparency you deserve. We understand the weight of the decisions before us, and we are here to engage in open, honest, and respectful dialogue as a board in every part of our agenda. Please remember that as we discuss and deliberate, that our words and our actions matter. We're modeling for our children how we face challenges, how we work through difficult conversations, and how we find solutions together. Let's do this with kindness, respect, and shared commitment to collaboration and understanding. I also want to emphasize our unwavering commitment to the well-being of all our students, including our Doty students. Every step we've taken is rooted in the goal of providing the best possible opportunities for every child in our district. We believe the partnership we are exploring and supporting, including those that focus on early care and education, will not weaken but strengthen our public education system. This is about thinking holistically and inclusively about how we serve children and families across our district, now and into the future. Before we move into our agenda, I will ask that we take a moment of silence to honor the life and legacy of Nathan Suter, a man who gave so much of himself to the young people of the future and to his friends. We're going to do adjustments to the agenda. We have one small adjustment to the agenda. If you see on 4.1, it should have read flag requests, because we have two requests as part of your program, as part of your packet. There's two requests, both for the Black Lives Matter flag and the Pride flag. So I just want to make that adjustment. Any other adjustments to the agenda?
What adjustments did you say were made?
Just on 4.1, it says Pride flag request, and it's flags requests. It would be two.
So I'm going to move that we amend the agenda to talk about and consider decoupling the 5-6 transfer, the 4-5 transfer to Rumney from the consideration of the MOU and the lease. So that, and put it in further like 4.1 in that area, just so it's all in the same subject area.
I second it.
We have a lease, so just before so is it a procedural question? We have it separate. We have lease and memorandum separate.
To decouple them is what I'm talking about. Having a discussion, since there's been change in factual circumstances over the necessity of having to transfer the students due to the structure of the Doty building, which I think has been changed, and just have a discussion about that.
So we can have that
as part of our meeting discussion of 4.1.
Yeah, we can have that discussion.
4.2.
4.2,
Yeah,
right,
and
I'm sorry.
we can discuss and arrange that subject at 4.2 as however we want it. You don't need us move, you don't need to change the agenda. It's listed on the agenda. I'm just trying to, we can discuss that point however you want to discuss that point.
Okay, and
On the
potentially
agenda.
change it. Potentially make a decision to change whether or not we're going to transfer the students. So it's a two-pronged.
Let's talk about that on that agenda item.
Yeah.
We're not,
Specific agenda
Agenda
item
this
for
is-
5/6.
So we have 4.2.3.
4.2.3.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Flora, I have another adjustment request. I'd like to move to extend the public comment period at the beginning. We have a lot of guests, and we've only have 15 minutes allotted for public comment. I wonder if we could extend that to 30 minutes. That's my motion.
Yeah, and then, as the community knows, Julia, we usually just open to public comment, we move it to 1.5 minutes, just to try to, but we know that we have a lot of people here, so I don't think we have ever hold it to just 15 minutes, but I hear you, do you want it to be adjusted, should I put 30 minutes?
If we need it, I'd like to, yes.
Okay, and then you want it to end at 30 minutes if we're not done at 30 minutes?
No?
Okay, so that's what I mean. So would it be okay to just open it to public comment and let the public comment? Is that?
We say we want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, exactly, so,
Yeah.
okay. Any other adjustments to the agenda? So can I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
There's a motion?
Yeah.
I think it's
So
been moved and
moved.
seconded.
It
I
was-
thought it was moved
Oh,
and seconded.
he moved to
might
add the
have-
5/6.
Yeah,
We also have to move to accept the
So
change
Liz-
to the flags.
Oh, yeah, I
So
support that too.
I'll call it as a second.
okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. So now we're gonna open it to public comment. We put board correspondence in our agenda, just so that you guys all know. It was supposed to have a link, but I think most of you, we have shared that link with you guys, and the board members have all of the correspondence, but we put it also as an agenda item. It was meant to have the link. If there's anybody that doesn't have the link, please reach out to Stephen or myself, and we'll be happy to give you the link to the correspondence. Now let's move into public comment. The time limit will be strictly enforced today to 1.5 minutes, because we have a lot of people. If not everybody speaking, we will open it up to 2 minutes. So please raise your hand, say your name and where you're from. And that also goes for people online, so please raise your hand if you want to speak. I see one hand online. Lisa, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hello, Lisa Hanna from Worcester. Moving the 5/6 to Rumney was inarguably first presented to all of you as a way to fit Turtle Island into the Doty building. The proposal has changed, and you must demand a new conversation. I could share many anecdotes from my decade as Doty's 5/6 teacher about why a small 5/6 class deeply connected to their community in and out of the building was a critical and positive experience for many students. This process, however, should not be based on anecdotes. A configuration committee was formed with the charge of advising administration about configuration changes. The current decision was not advised by the configuration committee at any point. We've been told that there have been long-standing concerns specifically about 5/6 at Doty. That demands clarification. If the concerns are academic, there must be data presented to you that supports this. If the concerns are about cohort size, then the district must be concerned about any school in the district with comparable numbers. Taos has had almost exactly the same numbers for 5/6 for FY24 and 25. Are we not concerned about the experience of their 5th and 6th graders? Are we thinking about long-term implications of this decision? When 6th grade gets moved to U32, potentially district-wide, Worcester children will transition to 2 separate school communities in 2 years in their early adolescence. Whatever the long-standing concerns may be, there must be other strategies and attempts to address those concerns before the drastic measure of uprooting students and families from their school community with a month left in the year. What has been tried? The uprooting of students with little notice is an emergency measure. What exactly is the emergency? What exactly does the data say? What exactly is the concern? what exactly is the process that you're going through here to make configuration changes? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. David?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is David Hershey. I live in East Montpelier. I have one child who goes to East Montpelier Elementary and two who go to Turtle Island for childcare. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board for considering a possible solution to the conundrum that my childcare is facing, in hopes that I can hopefully continue to work and continue to have childcare for my younger children. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Noah?
No. No Weinstein, Worcester. The decision to move Doty's 5th and 6th graders to Romney places an undue burden on the students and families of Worcester compared to the students and families of other towns in the district. Under the current proposal, Worcester would become the only town in the district where students are required to experience an additional school transition at the end of 4th grade, whereas students in other district towns would remain in a single elementary school setting for the end of 6th grade, preserving academic continuity, teacher relationships, and social stability. We have presented an extensive literature review outlining research indicating that school transitions, especially in pre-adolescence, can have significant negative impacts on academic performance, sense of belonging, and mental health. While moving Doty's 5th and 6th graders to Rumney could benefit some students, it would likely be detrimental for many others. Doty students currently benefit from a low student-teacher ratio, close cross-grade relationships, and a known faculty, all of which would be disrupted by this relocation. As a mental health counselor, I can attest to the likelihood that introverts, students with mental health challenges, neurodivergent students, students with learning differences, students from lower income families, and students from unstable household environments could experience significant challenges by the abrupt transition proposed in this plan. These kids and their families would likely experience great relief if they were told they could stay at their school next year. Importantly, the K-4 students remaining at Doty under the current proposal would lose valuable social opportunities as a result of the removal of the 5th and 6th grades, as Doty's family-like structure provides ample opportunities for social interactions and mentoring across grade levels. Under the current proposal, these opportunities would remain for students in every other town in the district except for Doty, giving rise to significant inequities across the district. By increasing inter-school social opportunities between Doty and Rumney, while keeping Doty's 5, 6 in Worcester and accommodating Turtle Island, all of these children could get the bulk of their needs met without the downsides associated with this proposal. This is a plan I could get behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You gotta hold it right up to your mouth.
Based on how the budget works, fewer students at Doty equals less money for Doty. Doty's total budget could decrease over
50%.
50% or more. Doty's total budget could decrease by this plan. This money gives us our classrooms, our special teachers, guidance counselors, nurse, interventionists, our principals. Rather than saving money, this plan would probably make it close. At the last meeting, Suzanne said it would make Doty lose twice as much money as Stephen said. We have been told that fewer students means fewer needs, so it would be okay. But kids don't only get sick or need to talk to the guidance counselor on Mondays and Wednesdays. If the board is being asked to approve the 2-year lease, it should know what Doty would be like in a year from now. Since we can now fit all the 5th and 6th graders at Doty, I would like to stay there.
Thank you. Joe, and then Jael.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you now. We
Okay.
can't see you, we can hear you.
So we've been told that the parking congestion will be solved by adding 8 to 10 spaces. And I went to Doty and I parked a row of cars and I could only fit 7 cars where we've been told that 10 will go. And I also measured the space, and according to standard market rate, it'll cost at least $5,000 to expand the parking lot to make those spaces. So is that cost going to be added to the Turtle Island lease? Because I think it's unethical to make the taxpayer foot the bill for a private business's parking lot. And the fact that this parking proposal was drawn up without anyone even actually measuring anything is really representative of how haphazardly the process has gone, and bodes really badly for any future unforeseen issues that will surely arise, but could possibly be avoided if not on this forced timeline. And we've been told it has to be on this forced timeline because Turtle Island is losing their lease. But from what we understand, they aren't losing their lease. They're choosing not to renew because of apparent conflict with their current landlord, which also doesn't bode well for a future partnership. And I'll spare the time by skipping the numbers, but if you do the math and take a ratio of the number of parking spaces Turtle Island currently has against their current student body, and then compare it to a ratio of the proposed student body with the proposed number of spaces in the Doty lot, you get a 66% decrease. So does Turtle Island know that they'll be operating with only 34% the amount of parking that they currently have? And we've been told that the congestion will be avoided by staggering pickup and drop-off times. But if Turtle Island has a student body of the full proposed 60, almost all of them will come in their own car. Therefore, Turtle Island drop-off alone will be almost twice as many cars as currently are at drop-off, which already regularly spills over to the Historical Society parking lot. And the Historical Society has made it clear in a public letter that they don't want Turtle Island using the parking area.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thank you, Joe. JL?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Polskamp. I have 2 daughters that went through Doty, and when they talk about their memories at the school, 2 things stand out for them. One is my now 19-year-old recalls her time helping serve lunch during the community lunches during 6th grade, and that was a highlight for her. Unfortunately, my youngest did not get to experience that and still talks about that because of COVID. And so even though our community is small, we have some valuable events and aspects to the community. The other thing that stands out for them is the ringing of the bell on graduation day. And I don't know if those things would be lost if the 5th, 6th grade was to move to Rumney.
Thank you, JL. I don't see any other hands. Oh, you have 2, 3 hands.
And there's going to be time at the end to go ahead. If you guys want to line up with the mic or just raise your hand. Oh, you have the mic. So whoever has the mic, please introduce yourself.
So maybe I'm Michael Close, I'm from Worcester. Maybe I'm just out of touch, but I didn't know this meeting was happening until my wife told me because she read it on Front Porch Forum. I work in the district, and if I didn't know this was happening, lots of other people don't know what's happening. If you really want community input, it would be great if the board could advertise these meetings or at least send a community letter or an email. Now, I know it's been said before, but it doesn't feel equitable that Doty's 5th and 6th graders are the only ones who have an additional transition to a new school. It's spring, we're all working in the gardens, and when you transplant a tree, it's stressed, sometimes it dies. Our kids aren't gonna die, but there will be stress, and this extra stress is just for Worcester kids, and that doesn't feel fair. This is by no means a guaranteed match made in heaven between Turtle Island and Doty. We brought up a lot of important questions. So, I mean, what happens when Turtle Island decides to move on to a different location, maybe one closer to their clients in Montpelier? This will be a difficult thing to undo. It's a big turkey of a proposal, and it just doesn't feel like it's done cooking yet. The decision feels rushed. I appreciate the idea of striking while the iron is hot, but this huge decision feels like it's based on Turtle Island's timeline and not the timeline that's best for us. Yes, Rumney has things that we don't have, but we have things that can't be replicated anywhere. I taught at Doty for 9 years, and now I teach at U32. I've also taught at Rumney. I'm teaching some of the same kids from Doty who I had in music class from kindergarten, and they're doing very well with the Doty education. I'm so, so proud of them. They're standouts, they're creative, they're kind, they're uniquely socially intelligent. I don't know what the test scores say, but I don't want to lose that. I realize that there are potential benefits to more students in a class, but there are also benefits to smaller classrooms. As a teacher, I can do more creative projects and get more one-on-one in a small class. I would choose a class of 8 for my daughter over a class of 28 or even 18 any day of the week, anywhere. Now, it's true I have personal reasons why I don't want this for my daughter. I don't like the idea of her spending a good chunk of her day on the bus, but also I don't want the stress of a last-minute change of school for any of the kids. I want my daughter and all the kids at Doty to be part of the unique opportunities that can only happen at Doty. I want her to have that sense of place and community that comes with going to a school in her town. It's not fair that Worcester kids are the only ones who will not get that experience.
Can you pass the mic around, and if we could try our very best to stay with a minute and a half, it would be awesome. But I'm just saying it now. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lauren Chabot. I live in Worcester. I've sent many letters with various concerns, and I just wanted to focus on one in this comment. In the revised proposal, it states that the goal of the lease to Turtle Island is to form a collaborative educational partnership. However, I am still struggling to see how this constitutes a partnership. I see no clear benefits Turtle Island is offering our district. So far, Turtle Island has committed to offer pre-K spaces to Worcester residents only, which frankly seems like the bare minimum. Additionally, I am concerned about the language in the MOU regarding pre-K registration and enrollment for these children following the timeline and procedures set by Turtle Island. The timeline and procedures for Turtle Island are significantly different from the district pre-K program and community connections. Worcester residents attending pre-K at Turtle Island should have the option to unenroll during summer months if desired. Community Connections does not charge for days no care is provided, vacations, snow days, holidays. Turtle Island does. We have not yet seen a true cost comparison for these programs. Additionally, the school calendar for Turtle Island is different from that of the Washington Central District. I am very concerned that the offer for extended pre-K through Turtle Island is not a fair offer for Worcester residents if we are required to follow the Turtle Island timelines and procedures. If this were a true partnership, I would expect a more intentional arrangement, one that puts Worcester and district residents and teachers to the top of the waiting list at Turtle Island. A model like that would provide much needed childcare in our area and would attract families and teachers to our district. When I talk with friends who struggle to find childcare, the response is clear. If a school district offered accessible, high-quality childcare, families would move there. That is the kind of vision I think we should be working towards. As it stands, this proposal doesn't seem to offer anything like that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. There was one more that I feel.
If I may, Andrew Callahan, Worcester resident and Doty dad. I'll keep it real short and simple. It just seems that we are talking about trading, two public school grades in exchange for a 2-year private lease. And what happens if that lease isn't renewed? We're just whittling away the school. It clearly looks to me as if there's this agenda of consolidation, and that agenda is what's driving this, and it's clear that Worcester doesn't want that. We want a small school. We like our small school. It feels like we're just trying to whittle away Doty, because you're trading something fairly permanent, something, 2 grades of our school for a 2-year lease. This isn't even a 10-year lease or a 5-year lease. It's 2 years. That's going to go by in 2 years. That's it. That's all I have to say. It's simple.
Hi, Kayla Holanski, Worcester. I'm a parent of 2 young children in the district, one currently at Romney and one at Doty. We live incredibly close to the Doty school. My daily drop-off and pickup routine already takes at least 45 minutes each morning and afternoon, an 800% increase over what it should be. Nearly any other resident in Worcester will have a longer journey than me by default. With the proposed changes, increased car congestion from Turtle Island families, and shifted school hours, this will only be longer, not just for me, but for families in the years to come. If this reconfiguration moves forward, my children will share only 1 year together in the same building during their entire pre-K through 12 school careers. Outside of that, they'll be separated, and it's deeply emotional. Siblings grow stronger when they share their school days. This will affect their relationship. We've outgrown our house and we're looking to move. Whenever my son hears we're viewing a house, he always asks, is it still in Worcester? Because I want to go to Doty. But the truth is, living in any other town in our district would be a simpler choice with less stress and strain on both the adults and children in my household. That's not equitable. I also worry that this chaos will discourage other families from choosing Worcester, affecting the value of my home and my financial future. But it doesn't have to be this way. If Worcester had both a thriving early childhood program with resident waiting list preference for birth to 5 and a full K-6 school like every other town in the district, it would be a real asset. It would bring stability and strength in our community. This plan threatens the very connections that help children thrive and communities grow strong. But today does not need to be a vote that ends a Turtle Island lease. You can still choose to continue with Turtle Island and keep our existing student body. Please don't make it harder for families like mine to stay in the place we love to call home.
Thank you.
So sorry about that. That's not what I asked for.
Okay. Thank you. We just have one last one, so.
There's one.
So you guys could help us with stay on the 1 minute and a half would be super appreciated. And Leila's working really hard in trying to.
Okay, I've timed it, I'll try. Lila Richardson from Worcester. I wanted to talk about part of the current lease and MOU drafts that we've been given yesterday. And to focus on the concept of the shared space in these documents. It's a very confusing concept. Turtle Island is only paying for a portion of one wing at a per square foot cost, but the library and gym are designated shared or common spaces, and giving Turtle Island a right to use these spaces based on permission from the principal. The terms common or shared spaces should not be used and incorporated in the lease and MOU. The MOU should specify that Turtle Island will be able to use the spaces, which are Doty spaces, not shared spaces, given permission. Doty is still responsible for the spaces and will pay all the building costs based on the space allocation. Turtle Island is giving nothing in return for the use of the shared space. The MOU says access to shared spaces will be coordinated to ensure equitable use while prioritizing DMS students and programming. The term equitable use is unacceptably vague and seems to give Turtle Island a right to use of these spaces. This sentence should be eliminated, leaving Turtle Island with the right to use the space with the permission of the principal. Additional vague language and confusing language says that reasonable requests for use of space will be given fair consideration. Oops, I went over, sorry. And that phrase should be eliminated. I also want to highlight concerns about the use of shared space during the summertime and other times the school isn't in session. How can scheduling decisions be made when the principal is not working at the school? Who will be responsible for custodial service when only Turtle Island is using these spaces? The shared space provisions in the lease and MOU are not fair to Doty students or to Worcester and district taxpayers.
Thank you.
My name's Andy. I have a kindergartner and third grader at Doty, and I live in Worcester. Tonight we want to paint a clear picture of the choice before you, a true fork in the road. You have the power to shape two very different futures for Doty, for Worcester, and for this district. We'll call scenario 1 a collective loss. The board moves forward with displacing Doty's 5th and 6th graders to lease space in Turtle Island. The decision is rushed and fails to serve the students or to build a true partnership. Weeks before school ends, students learn they're leaving the only school they've known, their teachers, their younger buddies who they just shared a whole year's classroom with, and they're just learning they're going to leave them. Parents can't tell them that this is based on research or a long-term plan. Some adjust, others struggle. A few meet new peers, others feel unwelcome, sent to a wealthier school community where they've already been ridiculed and told to go home at sporting events. Then, Just a year or two later, 6th grade moves to U32 anyway. Doty kids are left with a fractured path. K through 4 at Doty, 1 year at Romney, and then off to middle school. Meanwhile, Turtle Island moves in under an MOU finalized before key logistics like parking and financial equity, which we've already heard, are resolved. Promises of access and collaboration fall through. The community never involved in the process steps back, and volunteer energy fades. Trust erodes. By 2027, Doty has lost its upper grades, and with them 40 to 50% of its budget. Families leave, I'm wrapping up please. Worcester's population declines, the building's empty, by choice, not by chance. And we've heard that the whole reason we're trying to protect Doty by doing this is because they're trying to go after and close smaller schools. We are making the school smaller. I don't trust that we are making Doty safer. You still have another choice. And for that, I'll turn it over to Sophia.
Please reset the time, thank you. Sophia, Amy from Worcester, and I really genuinely invite you to imagine scenario 2 together, which I'll call the collective vision, because we want to uphold something here. In this vision, the board makes a clear, empowered choice to separate the lease with Turtle Island from the question of Doty's upper grades. Families and kids both feel their voices matter, and students experience civic engagement in real time. The configuration committee takes a year to do its job well and to find a path grounded in the core values of community engagement and equity, and trust rebuilds. 5th and 6th graders stay at Doty while middle school plans are developed. Students feel stable, siblings stay together, and older kids continue mentoring younger ones. They serve lunch to Worcester elders, perform at town hall, and help weave an intergenerational community. Doty's budget stays intact, ensuring staffing FTE and supporting educators already cherished by the community. Then Turtle Island moves in with time to finalize the lease with care. Child care spots are prioritized for local families and teachers. The agreement uplifts both programs and models true partnership, not disruption. Because community members were included in this decision, they feel energized and inspired. Volunteers bring Doty and Romney kids together to bond through theater, music, and STEM programs, laying the groundwork for a thoughtful merger if consolidation eventually comes. And I really want to finish this vision. Worcester invests in affordable housing. Families move here because there's care for their toddlers and a beloved community school that their children can walk into year after year. Doty becomes a living model of what is actually possible. In a time when rural communities are being dismantled and disinvested from nationwide, Worcester chooses something different to grow, connect, and thrive. So the board, you still have a chance to choose integrity over urgency, community over fragmentation, and a resilient foundation for a beautiful, lasting vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, one more. Will, go ahead, Will.
Hi there, I'm Will Baker from Worcester, former school board chair in Worcester. And I think we should be real about the lease for a minute financially. You know, this is a lease with $5,800 for $5,800 a month to a private tenant. You know, looking at the most recent lease at MOU, the additional costs for the district are construction, fire doors, interior door, custodial staff all summer, which is not typically needed, and all year for that space as well. Waste disposal all summer. Electricity for air conditioning utilized by only the tenant, not the district staff or students. Additional Doty staff time for library, food service, the principal's time to manage the shared spaces, resources, use of rooms, parking, etc. This $5,800 is going to come in and go right back out, certainly in the summer months. There's no security deposit from the tenant required. The tenant has a questionable relationship with its current landlord. There's been no competitive bidding to determine if this is a fair price for taxpayers. To do this right by the taxpayers of this district, these costs should be quantified so the board can have some assurance that the district taxpayers are not simply subsidizing a private business. And I know it's boring to talk about parking, but this is a safety issue. It is dangerous with the high snowbanks in this state, Worcester has no sidewalks. If you're parked along Callis Road, sending your kids to wind through the traffic to get in, it's gonna be very dangerous. That, I know some of you aren't all that, familiar with Doty, but this horseshoe parking lot is very small. And this is a huge, huge increase in drop-offs. And these are infants and toddlers. They have to park, they have to go into the building, get the kids situated, get out of the car seat. They need several minutes to park there. The parking is gonna be a very, very big problem and very, very dangerous. Thank you.
I'm Larrabee Fellows, mom of a current 4th grader and 6th grader at Doty. I've also been an educator in Vermont for over 20 years. I wanted to reiterate the point that Lisa Hanna made about the fact that the administration didn't raise the question of moving the 5th and 6th graders until the Turtle Island made the proposal. And that really doesn't ring true in terms of wanting equity throughout the district. If there was true equity, then there would be an attempt to consolidate 5th and 6th across the whole district. I also want to make a point about the parental impact that was already mentioned, and that for Worcester families with multiple elementary school aged children, the current proposal offers additional substantive hardships, as they would be the only families in the district required to bring their elementary aged children to 2 different elementary schools. Now, I can say this as somebody who has that balance, and when you essentially double the work for the parent because you have peanut butter at this school and snow pants are allowed here, and logistically, if you had 2 kids that are going to 2 different places, like, you know how much of a pain that is and how much of a burden that is for already overworked, underpaid Vermont parents. I have to say, students, including both of my daughters who currently live within walking and biking distance, would no longer be able to commute independently to school, which adds also inequity. And that would mean that they would either spend time on the bus, or they would have to, we would have to, as parents, find carpooling, or we would have to take time out of our day to make an additional run. So we're just reiterating the fact that this is going to have a big impact on working Vermonters.
Thank you. Anybody else before we move on? Okay, you got to, yes. Peter?
Hello, my name's Marissa Green. I'm actually Peter's wife. We're sharing a computer.
Hi.
So forgive me, I don't have anything prepared, but I did just want to say we are coming to Doty for the first time for next year from a private school. I have a 1st grader and a 4th grader coming. And so part of the reason why we decided to choose Doty is because obviously private school is not cost prohibitive, and we live right down the street from Doty. So this has kind of been a decision we've been meaning to make for a while. And one of the things that we really loved about Doty is that it is a small school, because where we're coming from, the classrooms are 1st through 3rd all together, and 4th through 6th all together, which has actually worked out really, really well. The class sizes are about 20 kids for 3 different grades, but there are multiple teachers. And our children are thriving, and so are the other kids at the Montessori school that we've been attending. And so it was really an important part of why we picked Doty. I mean, I talked to multiple families. I talked to Gillian multiple times. And I just wanted to state that because it's part of the reason why we picked it. And had I known that my daughter would have to make, 3 more transitions in the next few years, I probably wouldn't pick our local school. And I hate to say that, but I feel like that needs to be said so that people know that Doty, it is something that we would want to be a part of. But I don't know that everybody would want to be a part of it if their children are only going to be there for so long. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah? Sarah, can you hear me? Do you want to unmute?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. Hi, guys. Hey, thank you so much. I know this has been stressful for everybody. Again, here we are. Um, but I just wanted to, just speaking to the board, just ask to just slow this decision down. I feel like this proposal feels super rushed and is being treated like a golden parachute for our district. But I don't think that parachute has actually been properly examined for holes. I don't think there's been enough time to actually do that and actually have some proper due diligence with all of these plans. I think, between everybody else, I don't need to repeat what everybody else has said, but I think that there's enough logistical problems with this plan that needs to be addressed before any decisions actually get made with any kind of integrity. From a personal standpoint, my kids are finally old enough to bike to school together. They're 7 and 10. My 10-year-old would be in 5th grade next year, and it would basically take that opportunity away that they've been waiting for years and years and years to be able to do together. I do feel like kids are flexible and we are facing big changes and challenges, but I don't think this is the answer for our school. I think that we, as Worcester residents, you've seen very deeply committed, passionate parents who want actual community. And that includes, if that can include in this decision with Turtle Island, there are people here who really are dreaming of bigger, broader ideas for these plans. And I just ask that you listen to them because there's some really good ones on the table that do not include moving the 5th and 6th grade. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Hearing not seeing any other hands online or in person, we're going to move into the rest of our agenda, and then we'll move into the subject in a little bit. And the first part of that would be you. Yes. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Is it good? So the best part of the meeting, just as the mentor, is our student report. So go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I would just like to start off by saying a little bit about my experience at Doty. This is going to be very brief. I had a sibling at Doty. I went to Doty. I've lived in Worcester my entire life, and I've loved it so much. We're in the middle of nowhere, but the drive is always worth it. I was at Doty with my sister, which was spoken about by someone over here, and I really loved having her there. It's great. She's here now. We play lacrosse together, so it's super fun. But also, oh gosh, I'm yapping now, but I was able to bike to Doty. I lived like a 7-minute drive, but like a 30-minute bike ride to school. And so I would go and I'd go to the cafe when it was open. And that was just something that I remember and I really, really appreciate. So there's amazing things about going to a small school. Oops, and I just hope that we keep that in mind. But now for the actual student report. As many people know, it was Mentor Appreciation Night tonight. So there are students out there sharing mentoring projects that they've done through CBL, which is the community-based learning class that we have here. And then my favorite part always, sports are in full gear. So we had a track meet yesterday, baseball and softball games today, middle school boys lacrosse yesterday, high school boys lacrosse who were playing at Montpelier at Hartford yesterday, varsity girls lacrosse today versus Milton. We won 17-1. I'm just putting it out there. Oh yeah, it was a great game. We had students representing U32 at the Vermont All-State Music Festival, which is awesome. And then May, oh my gosh, I keep doing that. And then May is metal recycling month at U32. So Bulldog Recycling has a big metal bin for metal recycling near the wood shop over there for any metal stuff you have. Prom was this past weekend, which was super fun. It was super rainy, but it was fun. And then we got a clothing swap that's coming up on June 6th, which was organized by our school's green team, which is awesome. SAT tests and AP tests are coming up, which is not awesome for those that have to take them. I'm very glad that I did early college this year, although some people might not like it. I'm glad that I don't have to take any AP tests. Because I missed the last meeting and the last student report, I'm just have a very brief few things to say. School was closed 3 weeks ago on Friday, May 2nd, because of sewage issues, which tends to happen every year, but you know, it is what it is. And oh yes, and also if you see me on my phone, it's because I forgot my computer. I'm paying attention. I'm just, but that's the student report. Any questions?
Any insights on how senior splashing is going?
Okay, so I got out, and I'm very frustrated about it. But senior splashing, for everybody that doesn't know, is a water game done by the seniors. So if you see someone like wearing a floaty or like water goggles on their eyes, it's probably because they're playing senior splashing. And so if you're trying to shoot someone with a water gun, and then you get out. And if you win, there's like a big pot of money. It's super fun, super exciting. But anyways.
Not a game.
Yeah, yeah, it's not.
Where's your floaty,
Certainly
Becca?
not school sanctioned, but it's very fun. Any other questions? Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into our superintendent central office report. We call it the COLT report. And Stephen, you.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight one quick thing because it had asked by a couple of board members. The climate survey in the district is closed. We're pulling that data together to present to the board, kind of the 10,000-foot view at the next board meeting. And that information will be shared at the school level as well, so each of the principals will have that. It's a little harder to pull together because we use Google Forms this year instead of Thought Exchange, but it did save us $18,000. So we felt like Thought Exchange probably wasn't the best way to go right now. So, but we'll have that data coming up at the next meeting for us to look at. And I think Jen, do I see? There you are. I just wanted you to give a quick why we have the CIPs in the agenda, because there's a big pile of those, and we just want to make sure everybody understands.
So at the community forum in the beginning of May, you all had the opportunity to look at those draft continuous improvement plans. We got some stakeholder input. The staff has seen them at their respective schools, and this is the final version that we were bringing to you for your approval. If you recall, you all as board members have to approve each school's continuous improvement plan and the district's continuous improvement plan as an agency of education requirement. We've worked really hard at the staff and community level to ensure that the continuous improvement plans are also aligned with our district's strategic plan. That's not easy to say. And so we would ask for your approval of those plans. We're asking for that now because that we have to submit them in conjunction with the Consolidated Federal Programs application. That is due on July 1st. And I am in the middle of getting that ready so that I can submit it ideally by June 1st. If I just said that out loud, maybe I'll make that deadline. Thanks.
Yeah, and we just also want to just highlight Heidi. If I was going to have Heidi's our director of HR, and she's just going to let you know where we are with our recruitment efforts.
Oh, no, it's okay. Hi, everyone. I'm
Yeah,
sure you
everybody.
have to have the mic. Oh, hello, everybody. I'm Heidi Dimick, Director of HR for the district. You've already approved several nominations for new hires in the last couple board meetings, but in the COLT report, I just wanted to highlight what we're still recruiting for, which is a 5-6 classroom teacher at Berlin, a .2 health teacher at Berlin. Doty has a .3 school librarian. U32 is still recruiting for a school nurse and English teacher. The district is looking for a speech language pathologist. We have an IT director still under recruitment and accounts payable accountant in central office. But all of these are posted and many are almost at the final stages of hire, so thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Any questions in any of those or on the COLT report? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion. Go ahead, Ursula.
I move that we accept the continuous improvement plans outlined in our packet.
Second. Okay, so moved by Ursula, second by Keely?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. Any questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, so now we're going to move into our principal's report.
All right, we wanted to highlight.
I skipped the community schools.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
We had another report there. Our community schools report, Beck was here a minute ago, but.
No.
What did she just? Different.
We got lots of Becks and
Yeah,
Beckers.
Beck and Becca, but you guys had a chance to read it? It's meant to be just an update.
Yep. So if there are any questions about the community schools, the board's welcome to send those to us, and we can make sure that we get those questions answered in the next report as well. And then we want to highlight from the principal's report, I was hoping to do Rumney, and so I'm just looking to see if online.
I'm here.
There you are, Caroline. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi. So this month we had some of our safety team members practice our run route, which is part of Run, Hide, Fight. Staff will be practicing the run route before the end of the school year. The district safety team is planning to have students at the elementary schools practice run next year. And we will make sure to do it in an age and developmentally appropriate way. We've talked about using animals as a great way to give examples that help students learn why sometimes we run and sometimes we hide. We've also talked about the benefits of having students start outside as a way to make it more natural for them. I feel like we are fortunate to have other districts that are a year ahead of us on the implementation of Run, Hide, Fight. So we can learn from their review of this drill. And so that is the update from the Rumney safety team.
Thank you, Caroline. And we wanted to highlight that so that the board knows, like the safety team for the district meets every other month, and these are some of the activities that we're planning for our schools, just to make sure that we have options-based responses to any incident for you. So just trying to highlight that piece. And then Alicia, you're gonna, sorry, quick, got a question.
Yeah, question about what's the plan for prepping parents for a drill where we're talking about running?
Yeah, so big question. So we're looking at in the fall having both the run drill with our students and having what's called a relocation drill. And as part of that, we need to have a parents' night at each one of the schools that has information for parents, or at least we send out information for those who couldn't make that kind of night. But we are looking at how to plan that so that our parents have more information about. Particularly relocation. Those are very difficult things to do, and we want to make sure that we have a good plan for those. And so our district safety team and the school safety teams are working on those. Yep.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you, Patrick. Good question.
Yep.
And now, Alicia,
Yep.
on curriculum and welcome.
Hi. Yeah, you've heard me talk before about some work we've done around writing. And one exciting thing is that we're starting to be able to share that outside of our district and share some of the work that we've been doing here with others across our region. We've really focused a lot on conventions in writing. We created the single point rubrics from K through 6, and all of our teachers across the district scored that. And something else that at East Montpelier we've started focusing on and have brought this to some of our other schools and are hoping to bring it to all of the schools is just thinking about automaticity and accuracy in writing. So the actual physical act of handwriting. Because we know that if handwriting isn't automatic for our students, then they don't have the cognitive space left that they need to actually perform the writing tasks we're asking them to do. So we're excited to just roll out some of these really short, quick assessments to students that are really even just 60 seconds or less, asking them, write the alphabet, see how far you can go, write it in uppercase, lowercase letters, write it in cursive. And it tells us an awful lot just about how much cognitive space or load it is taking our younger students just to do the act of writing, and where we need to provide some supports and interventions in that area so we can open up more space for them to actually think about the content and what they want to write about.
Thank you, Alicia. Any questions?
All right.
All right.
And then Gillian?
So before the lease and MOU are presented for the board to vote on, I wanted to take a moment to speak to a few important points. First and foremost, I want to express my full support for this proposal. I have always tried to approach decisions through the lens of my values, and I think that over the years I have demonstrated that, especially in my earlier questions and concerns about the initial configuration. I am a person who will speak up when something doesn't feel right, and that is not the case here. I am fully on board with this proposal to lease space to Turtle Island. I felt a strong desire to support Turtle Island families ever since I saw the news on WCAX about their need for a new space. As Stephen, our other administrators, and I explored ideas and worked with Turtle Island, we ultimately arrived at the idea of shifting to a K-4 model here at Doty. At that point, I had to make a choice. I could dwell on the sadness of losing a group of students I care very much about, or I could embrace the unexpected possibilities that this change could bring. I chose to look at the possibilities. One of the issues I examined closely, and the one closest to my heart, was the idea of moving our 5th and 6th graders to Rumney. The more I examined it, and the more I kept returning to the conclusion that this change makes sense, especially as students grow older. Research supports that larger class sizes at this stage can enhance and improve learning outcomes. Students will benefit from deeper, multi-perspective discussions across all subjects. They'll also gain valuable experiences working collaboratively with a wider range of personalities and learning style, an essential real-life skill that aligns directly with our strategic plan. Additionally, when they transition to U32, they'll be doing so with a larger cohort of peers whom they already know. That means a familiar face in their new TA, something that does not happen now. Another issue I'd like to speak to directly is the concern around equity that has been raised regarding this move. It is important to remember that the principles of equity must be applied consistently across all schools and all students. For example, when we moved Middlesex kindergarten students to Doty for the 24-25 school year because the administrative team determined it would offer them the strongest educational experience. Using those same standards to guide the placement of 5th and 6th graders is a student-centered, equitable decision, one that benefits both Rumney and Doty students. There has also been some concern expressed that this partnership between Doty and Turtle Island might accelerate the school's decline. Unfortunately, and I want to be very clear with the board on this, I think that the time has come when we have to face the reality that Doty's long-term viability is equally uncertain with or without the 5th and 6th grade students in the building. Another concern that has been expressed is that the community was, quote, not invited to the table for these discussions. In that regard, I would ask the board to consider the following. The potential partnership was shared with the public at a board meeting within 5 days of receiving confirmation from state agencies that it could move forward. Doty families were invited to a forum the very next day. The Worcester community was invited to its own forum 2 weeks later. An open house was held at Doty to ensure that everyone had access to the information and an opportunity to provide feedback on the MOU. And at the May 7th board meeting, nearly all other business was set aside so that we could focus on this topic. There have been numerous invitations to the table to discuss the potential partnership. Finally, I would remind the board that since consolidation, Worcester has often had vacancies on the board and only a very limited number of community members expressed an interest in serving on the new configuration committee. The reality is that there have been empty, available seats at the tables where decisions are being made. This is an incredibly stressful time to be an educator in Vermont. The ground is constantly shifting beneath us, and schools across the state are facing uncertain futures. Even if no changes occur at the state level,
Doty remains in a precarious position due to significantly declining enrollment. We would be looking at significant programmatic changes regardless of how many grade levels are housed in the building for next FY27. I truly believe that the best chance a small school has to remain open is to be doing something innovative and student-centered. I can't say with certainty that forming a creative student-centered partnership with Turtle Island will save Doty, but I can say with certainty that we will have tried. And that, in doing so, we will not have left the town of Worcester with a vacant school at its center, addressing a significant concern brought forward in last year's consolidation talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. That was part of the, Gillian was speaking in the community engagement part of the report. Okay, so now we can move into, we have, yeah, so the configuration committee update, the configuration meeting committee met today. We didn't have time to do our usual 3 bullet points all together because we didn't have enough time. I did take some notes and put 3 bullet points, and there were several community members and committee members that were part of that conversation. So we talked, I think one of the best parts of that conversation was Becca's presentation on the future of middle schools and envisioning middle schools. And one thing that she said that I was just going to read out loud was, I invite you to join us in imagining what is possible for our students, our school communities, and the world that surrounds them, which perfectly talks about what we're doing today. We talked about the importance of having community input is the second thing that I would outline, and we would be working in trying to divide the configuration committee, making a plan for us to have a real community engagement with the information that we have so far. And the last part, Stephen and Jan, Stephen updated the process of how decisions would be made, and that is linked in the website too. And we didn't have a time to look at the backwards planning, but the backwards planning reflects what Stephen shared with us. The backwards plan, which is the timeline that we have, is still looking at September. I see you, Lila, but doing our best. Okay, the next part is the principal.
Just
go ahead.
to clarify, what would, backwards planning to September for what?
For having a model and voting, to having a model for our schools.
Okay.
Yeah, that represents our criteria, but that includes community engagement too.
The consolidation or the committee would then present it to the board then, or the board would vote on it, on something in September?
The board will vote. Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah, so September, we would be looking to make sure that we had a full model to the configuration committee and then being able to present it to the board by, let's say, August to the committee, September to the board, and then October for an approval of whatever we were doing.
Okay, thanks.
With work over the summer as well.
Yeah. Diane?
So as we're planning for that, and I do feel compelled to also respond to a statement, Gillian, that you had made about community involvement and engagement in the conversation around the decision. When I say that the community wasn't involved from my perspective, there's a difference between having a forum where we share what our ideas and our plan and proposal is. To me, is different than having people at the table helping to develop that. So to me, that was what I was referencing, not that there hasn't been those opportunities for those forums and those discussions. So, and the reason why I bring it up now is it would be my hope that as you're doing that backwards planning and that it's an open opportunity for the community to be engaged in the conversation and not just being informed of it.
Thank you, Diane.
I also just wanted to respond to something that Gillian said. You described the building of Doty as vacant, and although we might not have the numbers as other schools in the communities, we definitely have the community, and I just hope that we keep that in mind.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Also, that Daniel made a good point about.
Let me just clarify that what I mean is one of the major concerns that was brought up in consolidation, what I call consolidation 1.0, is that were Doty to close, what would happen to the actual building? So not, the the building is absolutely not vacant.
I need to say
Yeah.
that, because it's certainly not what I think of.
And that was just like a quick update in the configuration, in the configuration committee. And then we'll get into the conversation of Turtle Island in a few minutes.
No, I'm not talking about Turtle Island.
Okay.
I'm talking about Daniel's comment about engaging the community sooner in the configuration committee.
Yeah.
And trying to get a model out sooner than later so that we can
That's-
potentially avoid what we did last year and have more engagement early on rather than at the last minute. But I thought it was a great idea by Daniel's at the committee itself. And just giving him some kudos.
Okay. Central Vermont Career Center, Patrick, there's a lot going on and it's exciting. Go ahead.
Yes, so the Career Center has presented the plans for a new building to the town of Barry. The proposal is to put a building in Granville, up on the hill, out of the floodplain, and would have 3 times as much space as they currently have at Spalding. If you'd like more details, there's a 3D model you can look at on their website. And on the 11th of June at 6 p.m., there'll be a facilities forum at Montpelier High School, and they're going to all the sending schools in the district and having these facilities forums. They've just merged ours with Montpelier to have the facilities forum, just one for our geography. So it's 6 p.m. on June 11th. So that's exciting stuff, and please do get involved in that work. The other thing to report is that we have 3 students going to Skills USA Nationals from the Career Center. That's this weekend, so they're going down to Atlanta, and those are graphic design and cosmetology students. So exciting stuff there. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick? And if you don't follow the Career Center on Instagram, you should. I've always saying that. It's just really fun, and they put everything in there. Go ahead.
Well, is there any thinking about potentially delaying construction, or sort of thinking how that fits in with all the uncertainty around what's going to happen with regional districts or those sorts of issues?
Yeah, the thinking on the board is that they're going to proceed. I think the quote is "run until apprehended," and so they're going to proceed. That's not their quote. That's a.
That's your personal.
The sentiment, though.
Okay. Sentiment understood.
Nightingale, I think. But the thing is that they want to be seen as being proactive, and they're fixing they have a need. They have a long list of folks that aren't getting admitted because they just don't have the space, and so this would fix that problem. And there's no there isn't a moratorium on building, and so they're going to continue to go forward until one becomes, or they get support from the state.
And it's still subject, I sit on the facilities committee, and it's still subject to getting a bond vote, but everything has to move forward. So that timeline has been coming for over 4 years now, and the last 2 years, the facilities committee has been working really hard to make that happen. The next part is the weekly update. No, it's the Vermont School Boards Association update. You guys get your Tuesday update, and hopefully you guys got a chance to read it. I think the most pressing issue for us right now is H454 as presented by the Senate. So if we sent an alert, there's been 2 alerts sent, so if you can participate on those, that would be great. There are steep education cuts for some, and large taxes increase for others. We would be looking, and I haven't even looked at the last numbers, but we'd be looking at 4.4. Or is it 4.6 now?
No, it's $4.4 million reduction in our budget.
The foundation formula is piecemeal as best right now, and it's not really advancing. It has no vision, exactly what we were trying to get them not to do. Right now, instead of starting with a vision, it would just be draconian cost cuts that wouldn't allow us to serve our kids. well, the timeline is really compressed, and then how would they be, they're politicizing, how would they do the districts? So this is really urgent for us to, pay attention. We are testifying, we're moving, the vote on H454 was not put on the table today. There was a lot of work that went into that, and they're trying their best to, everybody is trying their best to work to get it as close as either the House version or, influence what it would be harmful for all of us. I could go on and on those topics, but read your update from BSBA. Then the other thing is that for some that haven't done any continuing education in how to be a good board member, there's a lot going on right now. There was a webinar just recently just yesterday. I was fine, so I was not able to be there. But Ursula, were you able to attend? Because I was not able to be there.
I did attend, and it was
Title
it was Title IX, Title VI, how federal changes in the law and our state laws and how they interact, and our policies might bump up against some of the changes. They went really, it was Petro and another partner in his firm. Yeah. They talked very well about it. The video is out there. It's available. Watch it. I plan on watching it again. There's just a large amount of information on this. And I think the sentiments of everybody in the webinar seem to be, we need more of this. It is a big conversation. It's worth a watch, and it is probably going to affect some of our policies and the things.
And we're in the process of scheduling a follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that I've also gone through the materials, and I'll be bringing anything to the policy committee that we might need to consider as well, because there may be some implications.
Yeah, and then just reminding everybody about the summer retreat. You guys should have got the invitation for summer retreat. And then one thing that I didn't add to the agenda, but you guys can all remind me at the end, is we need to talk about our next board meeting, because it falls in graduation, and we're proposing moving it. So just remind me that at the end of the meeting.
The elementary.
Elementary graduation, yeah.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, Gilly.
I just wanted to say thanks to Stephen for the alert emails. I thought that they were really nice and very welcomed, and appreciated the proactive and how to take next steps. That was awesome.
I would also thank the community that reached out to their senators. I think it had a profound impact, and I really appreciate that.
Okay, so now we're going to move into the board operations part. We have 2 flag requests as part of the packet. I'm wondering if our students are online.
And we might have one here.
Oh, she's here.
Yeah, Amelia's in the room and I'm here online.
Okay.
If more outside.
Anybody online could show their cameras. Is the only way I see it on my screen. It would be great.
Edith is online.
Yeah.
They can raise their hand.
Yeah. Who's speaking? Are you? Okay, so you got have it on. Yeah, come over.
This is how it works.
Believe it or not, this is on.
Yeah, introduce yourself. And you
can do me a favor, step over there, because if you're right in front of the speaker, it's going to give you feedback. Yeah, perfect.
And yeah, so the poor camera can see.
Yeah.
Sorry, all the feedback. Sorry.
You're doing great.
And Meg is online too.
Shelley.
Edith.
I'm Amelia Garland. Should I say anything else about myself?
No.
Okay.
You're good.
Cool. Oh yeah, I'm a sophomore here at U32. So I'm so sorry this is on my phone. I also
It's okay.
It's okay. But yeah, we as Seeking Social Justice and BLAM, I actually can't speak for BLAM. I don't know if anybody from BLAM's here because I'm not part of BLAM. But I am in Seeking Social Justice, and we submitted a flag proposal to re-raise the pride flag, but this time we want the intersex inclusive progress pride flag. Yeah, would you like me to read part of the proposal out loud, or?
However you want to describe, we wanted to have you guys here, so it makes much more sense and is more and more impactful when we see our students. So any part that you want to share, there were a couple of things in the proposal of why it is important and what it means for the students.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so we sent out a survey to the entire school to ask their opinions on if we should keep it raised or not, and one student said, if the pride flag was lowered, it would send a message to that U32 no longer cares about its LGBTQ plus students, and in fact actively wants to participate in dismantling the work that students have put in to make sure that U32 is a kind and loving place where all students are welcome. That's super important right now because the current political world is really scary for many marginalized groups. So like having this flag out there would be really impactful and make students feel more safe. And many students had very similar things to that in the survey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from the board? We're grateful that you're here, and I'm wondering, Meg or Shelley, do you guys want to speak to the Black Lives Matter flag?
I would just say I support it. I'm not a member of BLAM as well, but I definitely support it staying raised. And we do have a note in our request to consider having the flag requests be every 3 years. There would be enough, students would get to interact with this twice in their time at U32 if they're here for 6 years. It takes a lot of effort for the students to organize a survey, to read the survey results. There are a lot of transphobic and homophobic responses that we have to process as a group together. We could do it a different way as well. That's one way that we show demonstrated student support and to take a pulse on our community is to send that survey out because it shows that we still have a lot of work to do to live our values as an inclusive, humane, and justice-oriented learning community. But I just want to applaud my students who are here tonight speaking on behalf of the request and their agency and civic involvement. Thank you for being there, Amelia and Anita.
Thank you, Meg. Edith, I see that you came.
Hello, I'm Edith. I'm a U32 senior. I helped raise the pride flag in, was it 2022? I was a 9th grader, I believe, when we raised it. And while we still have a long way to go, there have been many positive impacts for many LGBTQ plus students. And going back to the survey we sent out, well, there was about 1/3 of students out of like the 200 or so responses are opposed to it. 2/3 were in favor of it. And as Amelia read, there were many quotes about students feeling safer, feeling like they could, sorry, I'm loading.
It's okay.
As though they belonged, as though they had community, and I think it would be a mistake to lower the pride flag because it would show that we do not care about our marginalized students. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. Okay, so I will be looking for a motion to approve both flags, and I'm gonna take a personal moment right now to say that like my daughter just graduated from college, and she was one of the kids that raised. And Stephen was here too. Meg was here too. Was the kids that raised the Black Lives Matter flag for the first time. So I think it is just really important, and it meant a lot for a lot of kids that were not seen for many years at school. So with that, I'm looking for a motion.
I'd like to make an enthusiastic motion to raise both flags.
Thank you, Julia. Second by Michaela. Any questions?
Could I,
Technical question.
Yeah.
Patrick.
could I address the 3-year?
Yeah, can we do just this, and then I was gonna move into that with the policy, is that okay? Can we do the motion, this is just to raise the flag?
If I could amend the motion to be for 3 years, would that be, or do we need to have a different policy?
I think it has to go to the policy committee,
Okay, understood.
because it's called, sorry, it makes sense, but yeah, so is it okay, good? Okay, so good, all those, is that?
I know with these motions, there is a risk if we do it wrong that we create a public square where we then need to raise any flag that comes before us. Is the motion clear enough that this is our action rather than a student action?
It is, and that's part of the policy, yes, yeah.
That's
yeah.
why the board has to.
Yeah.
Value.
Yeah. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, Shelley.
I had a question.
No, finish your vote.
Okay,
I'd just like to make a comment.
okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Shelley?
I also want to thank you for supporting us because it means the world that we can count on a board that supports our students, marginalized, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Meg, for all your work too. And thank you to students for being here. All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, or yes, 5-minute break. With that work? Yep. It's been a request, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. So the next part is our Turtle Island partnership. The documents were part of the packet. I wonder if we want to start with a motion and then we discuss. So, yeah, so we were gonna, we have two options, right? We can speak to the configuration, to the MOU and the lease as we talked about, and concentrate on that and approve an MOU and a lease. We can table the whole thing and have it go to the configuration committee, and the move and everything will happen with the configuration committee, and have all of this go to the configuration committee for a decision in September. Or we can go ahead and decide if we want to approve the MOU and the lease, and give the superintendent the ability to negotiate with Terror Island.
Another option is moving to just disconnect the MOU and the lease from the transfer. I mean, that's another option.
And that would be the prerogative of the leadership. The board is not going to make the decision on the 5th and 6th grade. We can approve a lease and let them decide how they are going to structure the grades, but that is not going to be the board decision.
But we proved that, last.
What we did is we gave direction. We keep trying to, I'm fine if you want to rescind the previous motion. All we did, it was trying to save resources. We said we need to give them a clear guidance that we are interested in coming into a partnership with the presented model, so that we were not going to be sending our lawyer, our Stephen, in just doing work for doing work. We said we were interested. We knew that the only thing we could approve is the MOU and the lease. That's the only two things that the board is going to approve. So if the board is not interested in the partnership, there's a lot of feedback from the community. If the majority of the feedback from the community is that they're not ready to move forward with the lease, and the board is not ready to move with the lease and the MOU, or not able to give our superintendent, because even if we approve it today, it still has to go to Turtle Island for them to be able to see if the MOU and the lease is what they will accept too. So we would have to give some ability to our superintendent to negotiate with them, just like in any other lease. And if we're not prepared to do that, we can also just do a motion, and I'm just brainstorming with you guys right now. Do a motion and table the whole thing. Let the configuration committee do its work, and we're done with the conversation today. Daniel.
I move to authorize the superintendent to sign the lease as presented with Turtle Island.
Thank you.
Child Care Center?
Yeah.
Second.
Child Care Center.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Second by Amelia. And then now we can discuss Natasha, do you have a comment on the motion?
I had a comment before the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to.
I know, but my hand was raised before a motion was made.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Do you want to make a comment? Make a comment.
I'm still trying to figure out why we cannot separate the two, and have a conversation about Turtle Island separate from the conversation about 5-6. I think that the community has spoken, about both of those things, and the concern isn't just about the Turtle Island proposal, but it's about connecting the Turtle Island proposal to moving the 5-6 grades. And so I think that we need to have a conversation about trying to separate those two things. And I also don't think that it should just be in Stephen's purview to do that. According to our board superintendent relationship policy, it says because the superintendent's proposal to move Doty's 5th, 6th grades to Rumney calls into question multiple core values and policies, it becomes the purview of the board to weigh in on the decision regarding moving Doty's 5th and 6th grades to Rumney. So I don't think that that is something that is just in Stephen's purview, but I think it's something that we need to discuss as a board.
Daniel, because you have them, and then Ursula.
Yeah, I agree with everything Natasha said. I think that, like, we as a board delegate the management of the district to the superintendent, but this would not be the first case, and it wouldn't be the last case of us intervening in that management when our community asks us to take a more active role in a certain policy or decision. I have my own view about that, but I do think they are to some degree separable, and I think it feels appropriate to me that we would consider a resolution stating that the will of the board was X or Y, related to the movement of the 5th and 6th grade out of the building. I'm willing to table if it's the will of the board, I'm willing to, support tabling my motion if we want to talk about that separability first. I don't think we have to talk about the separability first, because I am supportive of the lease, but if others want to, I think that's also okay.
I think, Ursula?
I was gonna say that this district has a precedence of moving students around, notably the pre-K and the kindergarten, to support the fact that there weren't numbers to provide a robust program for our children, and we did what was best for those students, and we moved them in together, and that was not a decision this board made. So for us to say sometimes we get to tell you what to do and sometimes we aren't going to, isn't in the idea of like good governance. And this is a day-to-day operations of the school, and we've asked our administrators to do things in a way that supports robust education for our students. We have an entire strategic plan, and we're asking them to make decisions based on that. And I think that we could make a statement that these are separated at this point, and the administration can still make their decision and their recommendation and go forward with their plan. But the board does not get to dictate how we configure our grade levels.
Chris, and then.
I think.
Sorry, Patrick.
There's someone else?
Patrick.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm a bit confused about the fact that we're talking about a possibility of signing a lease without having to move 5 and 6. I'd like to know why what happened that it's possible that 5 and 6 can stay in Doty. Is that true? And what happened?
That is not true. We're voting in the motion. The only priority of the board is to vote on the lease and the memorandum of understanding. The plan that we have in place right now is that the recommendation for the administrators, that is not for the board to undermine administrators, is to move the 5th and 6th graders.
I understand the motion on the table. I understand our role. And for me to support either of these two documents, I need to know what the details are. And at our last board meeting, we were told in definitive terms that the details included moving two classes of kids down the road. And I haven't heard in definitive terms at an open meeting that that's not the case. So is moving 5 and 6 from Doty necessary for Turtle Island to occupy part of the building?
Yes or no question?
I'm sorry?
I believe it's a yes or no question.
I think
I don't think it's a-
explanation is fine.
Yeah, I don't think it's a yes or no question. And
I'm the lawyer, Julia.
I thought that Patrick was looking for an answer to that question.
I'm going to let our administrators, which is their role
Please.
and is their recommendation, and I am not the educator.
And so I think what I would say is that it is not, okay, so it's not necessary. Yes, there is space. We could use the art room for that. I would also say that administration also would like to reserve the right to configure in a way that makes the most sense to provide a full program for all of our students. And so if we were to say that the 5th and 6th grade stay there, then we're also making the decision that art and music and those has limited space as well, which was another part of the complaint. And so I think we're trying to balance out which of these programming issues are more important. And so part of I think for me, it's knowing, is this the will of the board to even have a lease and an MOU? And I also heard from the community, and I think it's important to point out, is that there are still enough major concerns that the idea of, and there's the suggestion to push this back to configuration, to make it a part of the full discussion of what we're talking about. And that would be tabling this motion, or this, this motion, and asking the configuration committee to take this up in its full depth, which would answer the programming questions that we're talking about. So I think it's more complex than a yes or no. There is space, yes, but it does have impacts on other programming, as we've already talked about.
So I appreciate all that, and I thank you for the explanation, but one piece that I still don't quite understand is what's different about the proposal today than 2 weeks ago, for there to be space.
Oh, we actually were able to find the construction drawings and consult with an engineer and an architect that said, yes, we could put a doorway between the library and the art and music room. We could not put a breezeway on the outside. That would have been suggested for other reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm trying to, Zach had his hand up and then Keely.
It was just a technical answer on what had changed.
Okay. Keely, was your hand on, and then Julie?
My hand was up, yeah.
Or Michaelan?
It's okay. I guess I understand the procedural, I guess, but I don't think that we're now making a decision in good faith. And I think that saying that we can either accept it and leave it completely up to the administration, or we're tabling it for the year, is a lose-lose situation for no reason. I don't understand the reason for that. Like, why can't we just have this conversation? And it seems like there is room now for the 5th and 6th graders. When the proposal was presented to us, we were told in no uncertain terms that there was no room for the 5th and 6th graders. And so I think a lot of us voted on that with the notion that in order for Turtle Island to go through, the 5th and 6th graders needed to be moved. And I will say that personally, I do think that ultimately that is where we should be going, but to do that right now without it having to happen when we're also looking at configuration of moving the 6th graders is, I think, irresponsible, honestly. And so I want to figure out the procedural way to rescind the last one, but put forward a new motion so that we can direct the administration to keep the 5th and 6th graders where they are and go forward with Turtle Island if that's what the board chooses.
So Kelly, just to be clear, we wouldn't be, the one thing that we don't want to do is tell them what to do with the 5th and 6th
Well, we
graders.
did with the last time.
No,
It
we
was
didn't.
part of
We
the
gave them,
proposal.
yeah, but we gave them direction, right? We gave them direction that they told us that this was what the proposal included, but we did not tell them, you can't do this or you can't do that. We would be setting a precedent of board. If we approve that, we can still give them the liberty to decide to not move the 5th and 6th graders and use the art room, but that would be their prerogative to use. The only reason to table the motion is that there has been concerns not just about the 5th and 6th graders, but about the safety, about the parking, about other things. So if that, considering all the emails that we received today, so I just don't want to have our administrators spinning and our lawyers spinning on that for another week or two, right, and not get to a conclusion. So what we heard today from the Historical Society, the letter, amendments to the MOU, to the lease from our board member, we wouldn't be able to do this today. So that is part of the reason. So, but it is not for, I don't want to lose so don't get me wrong, I don't want to lose the Turtle Island Partnership. We've all been working hard for this Turtle Island Partnership. What I do want to do is stay in our roles as a board, and we do not get to decide the 5th and 6th grade option. We can send a direction or ask them, you know, I think it's more than that, and Gillian is sitting with us right now, so I don't think that, you know, I'm not going to be the one undermining them. We have, Michaela's had her hand for a while up, and then we have Julia.
Thanks. I think that, like, I think that this is messy as it is right now, and it's confusing, and it's setting us up for like hours of discussion potentially. So I know there's a motion on the table, and Robert's rules are not, it's been withdrawn already?
No.
Okay. Robert's rules aren't really my forte, but I think it would be my preference to table the motion, rescind our decision last time that included the 5-6 because we were told they had to be together, and then put forward the lease and the MOU, which don't have anything in them about the 5-6, and we can then discuss the 5-6 separately.
The MOU doesn't have anything about the 5th and the 6th.
That is exactly what I just said.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I move to table, can I move to table the motion?
I withdraw the motion.
Oh,
Yeah, hold on a minute, and we have Michelle, hold on a minute. Michelle.
Lots of Robert's rules.
Lots of Robert rules that happen, so we can either vote no, the motion that was on the table, we have the, yeah, go ahead.
Can I just, I just want a procedural piece. So there was a motion made to table what was out there.
No, there was a motion made to approve the MOU.
No.
Are you pointing at me?
Yes, you just made a motion.
Well, I said, can I do that? And he just said,
It was
no,
an informal
he'll withdraw
suggestion.
it.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure.
No.
Okay. I'm back
The
out.
only one that could remove it is Daniel. Yeah.
Which I
So
did.
we could just vote on it because it's been on the table, so.
Did you make a motion, Dan?
Okay, so I'm gonna let Michelle and then Julia. Michelle?
Okay, so we keep going around about the 5 and 6, and I understand how everybody's feeling about the moving of them, but we don't dictate to our administrators about their configuration at any of our schools. They do what they do, and parents are never happy. And I feel like that's what we're trying to do, is dictate what the administrators are putting forth in their, and it isn't really tied to I don't feel like it's really tied to Turtle Island. Turtle Island is its separate issue. Yes, we have that classroom that we have access to now. And as Stephen stated, and as we've seen in all of the different emails, part of it is there wasn't room for this, there wasn't room for that. That gives us those opportunities back. But how classroom configuration happens or where they go, we haven't dictated that in any of our other schools. So I don't feel like we should be dictating that now. That really should be the administrator's piece.
Thank you, Michelle. Julia or Michaela? I don't know, it's hard to see.
It's Julia.
Julia.
I would like to make a motion to rescind
the results of our previous vote based on a change of circumstances. At the May 7th meeting, we were told that it was impossible to build a door between the library and the art and music room, and when Keely persisted in determining whether that was the only possible configuration, Gillian said yes it was, and then the circumstance changed. Now we can have that door, so there is room at Doty for the full cohort up through 6th grade. Another thing that has changed is that on the May 7th, for the May 7th vote, we approved this proposal described in Stephen's May 6th memo, but the amount of money involved was completely different, and Suzanne suggested, she confirmed that at that meeting. It's going to result in much, much more money than we were told. So we voted on the basis of information that has now changed. And so this is why I would like to move to rescind that vote.
So we still have a motion on the table? We had not taken a motion out of the table?
No, it was removed.
You're going to remove it?
I withdrew it.
Who seconded it?
Who seconded the withdrawal? We didn't, informally, we did not get a second.
I seconded it.
No, you didn't. We
No,
did
who
not, we did not.
originally
So
seconded my
just-
motion, though?
Yeah.
Can we look at the minutes?
It was Amelia who seconded,
Amelia.
who seconded. So we did not have that discussion. So I'm just gonna finish that one. And then, so Daniel, you are tabling
I would
your
like to
motion.
withdraw the
Your
motion.
motion and you accept withdrawing the motion? Okay. So now we don't have a motion on the table. And I just want to make sure that you know that we do not need to rescind. There's nothing in Robert rules that require us to rescind the motion from last week. We can just jump into the discussion of the MOU.
No, that's not accurate. That is inaccurate,
It
Flor.
is not
Sorry.
inaccurate.
We have talked to 2 lawyers about
I
that.
talked to 3 lawyers today, too.
Well, we
There is
can,
nothing in there. And
discuss
we
the
don't need-
numbers.
But we don't need to waste time on it, right? So we can just move into the discussion of the MOU and.
No, we can't.
Why?
Yes, we can.
Because we voted through a proposal that included moving 5-6.
We're not
I totally
gonna-
agree that that's not our role to dictate, and I just would like it off.
So we're not gonna.
Can I say a bit?
Go ahead.
We voted to support moving forward. It has now been 2 weeks. We have all moved forward in time with the information that we had at the time, and then opportunities for the community to give input, and the administration reacted and responded to that community input. That is moving forward. We have done exactly what we moved to do last meeting. We have moved forward with the proposal that we had at the time. We now have a new proposal that we can make a motion about and have a conversation about. I don't know why we would rescind moving forward when we've done the thing.
That wasn't the minute.
Yeah, the motion was.
The motion is-
You can't speak.
Noah,
Noah.
hold it, please, thank you.
The motion, I've said it a couple of times, the motion was intended to provide guidance, and this was the discussion, to provide guidance to the superintendent. Vote to provide the direction to the superintendent, to the attorney. So as Ursula said, it has evolved. And that is part of, but there's nothing in Robert rules that not allows us to continue this conversation now. We do not need to rescind that motion. Go ahead, Zach. And then Daniel.
I think a way that may help to think this through is that last meeting, we voted to move forward with this proposal, really dealing with a lease. And at that point, the movement of the 5th and 6th grade was really about understanding the consequences of that decision. I think that now, based on what's happened, the consequences have changed. I think if it made people feel better, I would support rescinding that, but I think it's kind of a moot point.
It's a moot point.
If we pass a different motion now, that would overrule. I don't think, if it would move us forward, I would rescind, but I don't think we need to.
Yeah. So let's just move forward the conversation. I'm not trying to not have the conversation, let's just move forward. We don't need to undo the word. Daniel?
I just call the vote for rescission of the motion from last
Can I just read
meeting.
what it was that went, the original motion with the amendment from last week, or last time? Can I read it from the minutes? Okay. It was, oh, yeah, sure. The original motion with amendment was voted upon to support the proposal as presented in the memo, May 6, 2025, by Superintendent Delager Paint and Gillian Fuqua, contingent on an acceptable lease and MOU. And I believe the proposal as presented was to move the 5-6.
I call the vote.
Yeah, so who moved to rescind it and second it?
Julia moved to rescind. I think
And who
Michaelan
seconded?
seconded. I think Michaelan seconded.
Lisa, you have that in the minutes?
Julia moved to rescind
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna-
Michaelan moved to second. Okay, yep.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by
Wait,
saying.
no, I do have a question, sorry. If we rescind this motion, we can put forward another motion that's separate.
Yes.
Yeah, correct? We're not
Yes,
throwing it all out?
we're
We're
gonna,
not going
if we rescind this
Okay,
motion,
good then.
the only other motion is to talk about the MOU and the lease. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. So, the motion carries. Okay, now we can move into talking about the lease and the MOU.
Maybe I just turn it off. This might sound childish, but I want everybody to just take a deep breath because I feel the tension's on. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding at all. Like, take a deep breath because tensions are getting high and this is just not really, take a sip of your water, whatever you need to do. This is not, we can be respectful, we can be kind, we can be patient with each other. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lena, that's awesome. And at you, 32 too. Okay, let's continue.
So is there a motion pending?
So we need a motion to talk about the lease and the memorandum.
So I'm going to move that we have a specific discussion on transfer of the 5-6 to Rumney from Doty in any type of configuration. And I want to preface that I think we have voted to support when the administration has recommended a reconfiguration, but I don't think the administration would have the authority to reconfigure solely on its own, particularly since, and just as a little background, there was no discussion about reconfiguration even with Turtle Island hopefully joining our district before the inability to put in a door was raised. I don't think they were coupled at the outset until the structural problem was raised. And that's when it came, we could do this, but we have to move the 5 and 6.
Point of order. Is there a motion in
Yeah,
this,
there
or are
is
you
a
having a conversation?
Well, it's kind of a monologue.
Can I get a clean motion so that we can all
Yeah,
understand it?
the motion is that we put on, make motion, a decision on whether or not we want or don't want the 5 and 6 from Doty to be transferred to Rumney for the upcoming school year. That's the motion.
Can I request to amend that?
Yes, you can request.
It seems sort of semantic to propose that we start discussing it. Can you propose that we do one or the other?
Yes, I propose that we, as a board, state that we do not, we will not move the 5-6 from Doty to Rumney.
Any more discussion?
Or
Yes, Michelle?
can we follow the agenda? The agenda has, we talk about the lease, the MOU, and then we put it on as 5-6? Because if we're not gonna do the lease or the MOU, there's no point of talking about the 5-6. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what I think.
I have a motion, and it's that we will not authorize the move of the Doty 5-6 to Rumney. That's my motion.
And I
We have a
seconded
motion
it.
and a second, a motion by Chris and a second by Julia. And I again want to remind the board of their role. Zach, do you have a discussion?
I just want to comment a little bit on some of the research that was shared with us. We were given quite a lot of research, purporting to show significant harm to students from moving. I read quite a bit of it. Almost all of that research was on individual student moves, independent of their classes. The exceptions, there was one study looking at the city of Nashville after the end of forced busing, which is a very different scenario than what we're looking at, where you had students intentionally being bused to different communities to break up segregation in the schools. But there was really, if we're going to rely on this public comment, I think we need to recognize that there was a significant amount of research that I would say was misrepresented to us.
Diane and then Patrick. Oh, sorry, and Ursula and then Daniel.
So for me, again, there are many pieces of the puzzle that come to play in that. So one part might be that research, other part. The questions that came up for me was somewhat of the timing, because yes, we didn't dictate or approve or not approve of the K move, but that had also been told to us way in advance. So to me, part of that's the timing. We hadn't heard of this before this other situation had popped up. We do have a configuration committee that's potentially going to inform us of a process. And we also know that we have, I'm certainly not saying that we're never going to move or make that move. What I kept hearing was that if we are anticipating that move for the 6th grade in a year or two, creating this transition too is what's problematic to me. And so that's where I'm coming from. So it's not necessarily, I've been greatly informed and I respect all of the different opinions and support and not support. To me, that all fits into a piece of puzzle where I can think independently and have these reasons.
Patrick?
Yeah, I also read the literature that was sent to us, and I looked for ways to inform this decision, and there isn't a perfect match for what those papers said about the kids that were in the studies for our district. That's rarely the case. It would be too lucky to have a study of a school just like a school in our district to guide us. I don't think that's the point. I don't think the research was misrepresented at all. I think that the point of it is to inform the decision, and what it tells me is that, and I think to paraphrase a different public comment, is that there will be kids that a move as a 5th grader would be a benefit, and there will be kids where a move as a 5th grader will be hurtful. I think, and we don't need research papers to tell us that. I think that is self-evident. I think that we've heard a lot of information from a lot of different folks in this conversation. I think we have, specifically thinking about 5-6, I think there's a lot of opinion on both sides of it. But I think we as a board have set up a process to address this exact issue, and that's our configuration committee. And so my suggestion is that we use that committee for this kind of discussion, and that's where I'll vote.
Okay. Ursula and then Daniel.
I too read through the research with a critical eye, although I will point out the research presented to us was 20 papers, one of which was 296 pages long with 96 individual references. A quick research on how long it would take to critically review that article alone is roughly 1 month. And that's assuming you're well-versed in the information. And you guys have sent it to the board asking us to do it in 2 weeks. Well, we also read 50 different emails that have come in the 2 weeks, the entire time at which we are not allowed to have a conversation. Our work takes place twice a month for 3 hours when we're lucky, Last time it was 4.5 hours, and some of us were there earlier for for committee work. Well, we have a very limited time in which we are allowed to talk, and yet we get this very unbalanced, biased viewpoints that are sent to us in a continuum that almost makes it impossible to really do our job as board members. But I'm gonna look at this from an education quality and an equity standpoint. We talk about what we burden our students with in 2 years when we send the grade from Doty that has 6 students in it to U32, where there will be approximately 100 students, and there are 3 cores. You're talking maybe 2 students per core at that point, out of 100 total students. They're coming in with 6 peers total. What are we doing to our students when we're asking them to learn how to navigate a brand new school that they don't know, when they are the youngest kids in a very large area of students? What are we burdening them with when they are here and they don't have a large number of peers? When we talk about it, our administrators have said, this is what we think is in the best interest. And I think that we need to leave it open. Circumstances have changed, and our administration can look at what they want to balance at Doty and what is in the best interest in our students. Do we minimize their art and their music space so that we can keep the 5th and 6th graders here, or do we move the 5th and 6th graders? But that is up to administration to decide what will work best in that building, what will work best for those students, because they work with those students. And the teachers can have input. The administrators who work with those students can have input. It's not for us to decide that. And yes, we have a much larger configuration conversation to talk about for the entire district, but we have moved grades when it means that it's going to help create robust programming, and that has been done at the administrative level when they say that we have a need, and they inform us of that. In this report, like in the packet that we got, we even heard how East Montpelier had to adjust how their classes are configured for next year, and they just made that change. So I think that we need to allow our administrators to make the choices that are in the best needs of our students and not dictate how they will utilize the space for their day-to-day not the word, but giving the programming to our students.
Thank you, Ursula. I think we had Daniel. Daniel, did you have something, or let Amelia go? Go ahead, Daniel, and then Killy, then Amelia, and then Killy.
I was just gonna appreciate the feedback we got from the community. I thought it was really rich and really educational, both in terms of personal experience and in terms of a lot of helpful and constructive feedback to make this MOU better and to make this lease better. So thank you to everyone who shared. I think it's also important to remember we're all of us amateurs, and in both the good and the bad sense, we don't have a critical professional's eye for every specific detail, but we bring our passion and our love for our community and our students to this work. I also want to just emphasize that I think language matters. I'm going to oppose your motion, Chris, because I agree with Flor and Ursula that it's not our role to direct or authorize, in this case, the movement of the students. I don't support moving the students to Rumney, but I also don't want to be dictating that. So I'm gonna oppose the motion, but I would support a motion if it was a resolution and it was expressing the sense of the board rather than trying to direct.
Amelia?
Just out of respect to the roles that we have and with integrity to how we show up here, I just want to read the description of our roles and the distinctions between our roles. So the superintendent has a responsibility for daily operations of the school, including hiring and managing staff, curriculum development, school programs, the implementation of board policies also lands on the superintendent, as well as guidelines established by the school board. And regarding communication, the superintendent acts as a liaison between the school board, staff, students, parents, and community. The differences are that the school board directors have no individual power, and the only power that we have is as a quorum. The superintendent is the chief executive and has more direct authority in managing the district operations, and that means the procedures. That means using, the information and training of the staff and the administrators. That's their job. They're the experts. And the school board focuses on long-term planning and oversight, while the administrators focus on the practical implication of the policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. I wanted to clarify one thing that was asked, just because just looking at my notes and I have the numbers here. Calais has 15 fifth graders and 16 sixth graders. So just to make that, because there was a mention that they were not big enough. Go ahead, Keely.
I would support Daniel's idea to have a resolution of the general feeling of the board instead of a motion. I do understand our roles, and the reason that I'm pushing back on it so much is that it was, when we approved the motion last time, it said with the proposal as written, and the 5th and 6th grade moving was in the proposal, and that made me feel very uncomfortable. Now that it seems like it is an option, I do think that it's a bad time to move the 5th and 6th grade. I think that they should be moved eventually. I do think that we need to have that configuration conversation, but I think doing it right now ahead of our planned configuration proposal that will happen in August and be voted on in September, October, is, if it's not needed, that disruption is a disruption.
Stephen?
Yeah, I just, I want to thank the board for their debate around this. I have made it clear that I thought that this was a proposal that was good for us, good for our community. And I also think that because of the difficulty that we're experiencing in this, and my desire to make sure that the board does not overstep into administration's role, I would still propose that this item, the Turtle Island Partnership 4.2, is tabled and sent to the configuration committee for us to give it greater scrutiny, more public input, and be able to answer these questions in a longer term way. And I understand that I'm also the person who brought it in this time frame and have created a lot of what we are doing right now. But listening to the board, listening to the community, I understand that we are not at a place where we're ready to make a decision or have that decision. And so I would just say that it's within the right of the board to table something so that it can be given more time and more energy. And so I think that that is probably our best option, in my opinion. That way, administration preserves its role and the board preserves its role, and we put this back onto the committee that was designed for this work. Thank you.
Amelia?
Do we then forego partnership?
What was the question?
Do we then forego the partnership with Turtle Island?
Essentially.
I think for the short term, yes, that would be what tabling would be. For the long term, that we have not removed it because it's tabled as an item. And so I understand that that affects Turtle Island, but I'm also understand what effect this is having on our district.
Could we propose to move the lease and to approve the lease and the MOU with the caveat of negotiations around this? That was brought forth before?
So let's say, we have a motion on the table, right now, so
No,
we could vote, wait.
Wait, I'm gonna move to modify the motion, and make it a resolution as opposed to a motion. So I'm move to amend the motion and frame it more as a resolution for a sense of the board. And whoever seconded it, that's a friendly amendment. So Dan, do you accept that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't second it initially.
Who did?
Yeah,
So I think for clarity, I would want to vote no on the motion that you proposed to make it clear that we're not going to get in the role of our administrators. So if the board would have to vote no on your motion, and then we can create a resolution after we're done talking about the MOU and the lease.
I think I can move to amend the motion and transform it into a resolution, and I think I'd prefer to do that. Is there a second to support that?
Daniel
amendment?
supports it.
Okay.
Was there an original second, Lisa?
And what does the resolution say?
He wants to change it to.
The resolution says that it is the sense of the board that the Doty 5-6 student should not be moved to the Rumney Memorial School.
For 1
as
year
part-
or for?
No, just as part of a partnership with Turtle Island.
Second.
Any discussion? Daniel?
I just have a question for Stephen. I mean, is the feeling you just expressed your feeling regardless of whether we take action here or not?
Yes, and I would also add that even if the board is making this as a resolution, any decision that administration makes that might counter that would be seen as going against the will of the board. So even as a resolution versus as a directive, they do feel the same from administration standpoint. So I'm concerned about us not staying in our roles, me included, right, in this, that the board has its own decisions to make, which is why I make the other recommendation.
And so I have a clarifying question.
Diane?
So clarifying question. So hypothetically, it would be most potentially helpful in this situation if that resolution was withdrawn and somebody moved to table.
That is my opinion, yes.
Okay.
Even if it means Turtle Island going elsewhere.
Correct.
Correct.
But they also, I think also just to be clear, is Turtle Island still had that option, even with us extending a lease to them. They did not, they are in a position where they can choose to or not to sign that lease.
Sure.
Right, so just want to.
Within the climate.
So should somebody care to withdraw the resolution, then there might be somebody who's willing to make another motion.
I think you might have more influence than anybody on that, Diane.
Can you write it on the wall so I can really see it? So,
So originally Chris made a motion and Julia seconded it. And just now, Chris wanted to amend the motion to read as a resolution, and Daniel
Dan.
seconded it.
Yes.
Well,
As
we
confusing as
we
it
needed
is.
Julia's sign.
And I said, sure. Okay, okay. So
Now,
now
Chris-
what we have on the table is a resolution. The motion is no longer, okay, okay.
so have you heard my better angel, so my hearing aid side? I'm going to move to withdraw the resolution.
Thank you. Julia? Julia, I couldn't, did you accept it?
No.
No, she had to do it.
You made the original motion, so you have to.
No, she reseconded the original motion.
That's okay.
Okay, so there's no motion on the table right now. Could I have a motion?
I move that we don't table this discussion because it's paramount to saying we're not going to deal with Turtle Island at this time. And so I think we should follow through on this MOU and the lease because I heard support for Turtle Island from the Worcester community too. It wasn't anti-Turtle Island, it was pro 5-6 at Doty. And so I can oppose any tabling of consideration of this arrangement.
Ursula?
In the interest of clarity, so people can understand how they're voting and what they're voting on, I would recommend as a best practice that we make our motions in an affirmative, so that when people vote yes versus no, it is really clear how we're voting. So when we put forth motions that have a negative,
Right.
It's very confusing.
it gets really confusing, and sometimes people, even on the board, are just left, wait, which way am I going? We haven't had a second yet. I would invite you to make a clean motion with affirmative language so that it makes it easier.
It's kind of hard to be affirmative about telling someone not to table. How about it?
So it's
No,
You want to
you're
make
not,
a
you don't
motion
need
on
to
the-
do not the
on the
table.
lease?
What?
Are you just making
You
a
could
motion
make a
to
motion on the
approve the
lease.
lease?
Yeah, so,
Oh,
Zach,
okay.
go for it.
There you go. Okay, I move that we consider the lease and the MOU.
I move that we approve, not consider, it would be, that we,
Instead of
have,
having a conversation.
And then we'll discuss.
and then we'll discuss.
Okay, that we approve the lease and the MOU.
I'll second.
Okay, so moved by Chris, second by Zach. Okay, now we can discuss the MOU and the lease. Okay. Patrick, and then Diane.
I have a question about parking.
Go ahead.
In the MOU, we have 12 spots identified. And in the lease, we have 12 spots identified, but in one, there's exclusive use, and in one there's not exclusive use for 12 spots. What's which are we hoping it would be? We'd have exclusive spots for Turtle Island, or Turtle Island would have
12 spots.
exclusive spots? Okay. I'll find the edit and I'll make that clear.
Do you have one more thing, Patrick, or?
So I was curious, I was still on the parking, I don't know why that's got me today, but is 12 spots enough? Is that what Turtle Island has asked for, or is that just?
We know that we require 10 to 12 spots, and they have 10 to 12 staff as well, is what they're forecasting.
Okay.
So we felt we have 25 spots that we will be able to have. One of those is an accessible spot, so we did not determine that.
Okay, another point is on the crisis organizational chart. It's clear, I don't quite see in the MOU if there's a crisis, who's in charge. I think that would be the principal.
Correct.
But what if the principal's not in the building? I think
There's a principal designee at any building if a principal isn't there.
Okay, so I think that needs to be clear in the MOU that we have.
Principal or their designee.
Yeah, and then who on the Turtle Island side is in charge of their crisis management?
Their site coordinator.
Or designee, I would assume. Yeah, so I think that needs to be just mapped out, so we don't.
Can I ask a clarifying question to Patrick?
To Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you were talking about the crisis management, is it in the lease or in the MOU?
So I found it in the MOU that talks about emergency.
So we're talking item 13?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, emergency preparedness.
Emergency preparedness.
So like another bullet there.
That essentially outlines who is in charge
And with
in a
the
crisis
proper.
situation and like chain of command.
Yep, I think that's important.
Diane?
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
So in addition to the parking questions, I'm concerned about the fire lane and that, and I'm not seeing much clarity around if that has been approved or signed off on by, what I'm hearing is that a lot of it's in the fire lane, or potentially there's playscape and things like that in the fire lane.
The fire marshal is aware and has had no concerns with what we had.
I would really recommend,
We'll go back, we always go back.
So the other thing is that question about, is there a way to have it in the lease that we can adjust the monthly rental costs based on actual costs? I mean, right now, we're guesstimating, and I am concerned that there is a lack of specificity in this because it's all best guesstimates. And so I'm concerned that potential modifications and that are gonna run us into more than what we're anticipating. And then also usage and electricity and that might run us. And so I just wonder about, is there a way to have in there that like a 6-month review of, and that, you know, because if we're locking into 2 years at this rate, do we also have a part where it goes up based on a cost of living or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that.
So did you have a?
No,
clarify to
no,
that?
no.
Okay. Julia and then Daniel.
So I want to follow up on what Diane just said about the fire lane. So the play space that's drawn on the map in Exhibit A, I believe to be impossible given the boundaries of the western side of the building. So one of the issues with the MOU as it stands now is that it doesn't make clear also when it will be constructed. But more importantly, the MOU says that Turtle Island will be responsible for fencing and maintenance of the designated play space for infants and toddlers as designated by the lease. The fence must have gates that allow for snow removal for maintenance of the fire lane. So a fire lane requires a width of 20 feet. And yesterday I went down to Doty and I measured the space between the building and the fence. And one end is 26 feet, maybe 27 if you're snuggled right up against that fence. And at the other end, it's only 16 feet. So I'm having trouble envisioning how a proposed designated play space would fit there and still have an accessible fire lane. So it surprises me, Stephen, that you said that the fire marshal is like okay with that? Is that what I heard?
When the fire marshal visited, we had the fire marshal did not have concerns with that.
Concerns with putting a dedicated play space in a fire lane. He said that's just fine and we can remove snow and get a fire truck through.
I wasn't with him at the time, I'm just.
Yeah. And Phoebe?
I think that's an important question to have an answer to before I can approve this MOU and lease, that's for sure.
I think you can still give guidance, right? Go ahead, Seth.
I'm a little confused by this. I've spent a decent amount of time hanging around with fire departments. I've never seen a fire lane on the side of a building on the grass like this before.
Oh, yeah, you can have it, understand, and in schools it's not unusual, but there's also the fire lane can go farther out, so I don't see any problem, but I don't want to be the one calling those shots. And, you know, Stephen and the administrators, of course, the principal and Stephen, that it's, you know, bare minimum that they will have to do it, right? So it's something they take really serious. So, Daniel?
Yeah, I was just curious if we had, where were we on a cost estimate for the renovations in the building? Do we have an estimate of any kind? Or
Not a full estimate at this point in time. Some of the improvements can be done by our in-house people as well. And so we haven't gotten.
do you have a degree of confidence that it's under 50 or over 50,000 or under 100,000 or?
I would definitely say it's under 50,000. I mean, if that's your marker. That's
Just trying to get a sense of it.
Yeah, but they would have to get an estimate, and now if we proceed, then they can hire the architect and
Understood.
engineer.
I didn't have a sense of even the.
So that just-
We had,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
think, Daniel, there was one more question down below, or before, Diane just had the opportunity, there was another hand down, nope, okay. It was Jude Gillian, it was just, there was, somebody had a hand, so. No, okay, Diane?
Well, it just concerns me, I just don't, I'm not saying that I would vote it down, but I'm a little concerned, especially in this day and age of construction costs varying, that we just say, yep. I mean, we wouldn't we wouldn't do business that way anywhere else. We would need to know what the estimate is and then land on that. And so, again, I'm not saying that it's not right to be doing that work or that we wouldn't approve it, but I'm not comfortable saying I'm okay with a guesstimate when we don't even really know.
Any other input in the MOU?
No, we're just talking about the MOU or the lease or both?
I thought we were talking about Yeah.
The motion is for both.
Yeah.
So I made a couple proposals in the lease and the, made some proposals in the lease and the MOU, one of which would be to have an automatic rent increase tied to the Northeast CPI, which is Northeastern Computer Price Index, and then have that automatic as opposed to be flat.
Wait.
Hold on a second.
Pause for a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
Then the next would be not having 24 hours, 7 day a week access, but just have it coordinated with what the Turtle Island business hours were, unless they needed more time for some other reason, but 24/7 in this type of relationship seems a bit much to me. The other is to explore having Turtle Island pay utilities and calculate those as a proportional share of the increase, because we would be able to, I think I proposed a 2-year average utility cost, and then whatever the increase on that was would be Turtle Island's, because that would assumedly be the result of the extra use or the more intensive use. And there can be some dickering on that, but.
Can I have clarification on that?
Sure.
So are you asking that Turtle Island pay a percentage of the utilities equal to their percentage of the space in the building?
Yes.
So if they occupied 20% of the total square footage of the building, then they would pay 20% of the cost of the utilities? Is that, I'm just trying to understand.
What I'm gearing at is, and there's a difference here, because they have classroom space, which is exclusively theirs, and then there's shared space as well. And then there's other space that's exclusively Doty. What I was proposing in terms of trying to do the calculation, rather than separate meeting, because I don't support that, is to figure out what the average utility cost was, utility, gas, everything else, over the past 2 years was, and use that as the benchmark. And to the extent that the utilities went above that, then Turtle Island would pay that, because the assumption would be that the increased use caused that increased cost. That is no longer the average. Now, I understand that you can say, well, we have 15 fewer kids, and so, but that was just kind of a benchmark that I thought might be workable.
But wouldn't it come from inflation?
The what?
Inflation.
The CPI would come with the inflation. Well, it wouldn't come from the inflation, because if the utility costs went up, but you're right, it would have that base wouldn't inflate. You're right about that.
I have a really friendly request that everybody use their microphone. It makes it very hard, I know, for the people online, but it makes it difficult for me as well to hear everything.
Okay.
Just right.
And then, can we take 1 second? Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Our student representative needs to leave a little earlier than I was hoping for, and she might not be able to be with us at our next meeting. And she is our senior, and we had a little certificate for her. So I know that this is out of order, and I apologize for everybody, but we just want to thank you, Lena, for serving on the board for 2 years with us and for inspiring the future school board members to come. You've been such a kind voice and a very thoughtful part of our board, and you make us better. We're going to miss you, and we have a little something for you, but I just don't happen to have it today. But we want to thank you publicly, because you won't be able to be here, and it's so important to have student voice in our meetings, and you've been wonderful. Thank you. I hope you got this.
championship playdown game, so I will try my very best. But I still got 5 more
And we
minutes.
hope you
so-
don't make it, Linnea.
So just to share a little secret, if you want to see her, you can come to the Red Hen
it's our-
Bakery.
Yeah, it's our board
Because she
retreat.
started working there.
Where?
Red Hen Bakery
Oh,
in
Red
Middlesex,
Bakery. Oh,
Vermont.
that's great. So our next,
Great
our next
addition
board
to the
meeting is,
staff.
our next board meeting is the retreat, Linnea, and we're doing it a little earlier, so I don't know if you want to be part of that or not, because it would be training.
Okay, I will let you know.
Okay, so, okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. That is so kind.
Thanks, Linnea.
Okay.
I
Right,
was
go ahead,
also
Mr.
suggest to change to 12, number 12 assignment, so that if Doty was closed through any state type action, that it would impact the lease. Because it does talk about if the voters voted to close it, but if the state ended up doing something, it does covering that as well as an unintended consequence for us. I also think that there's an inconsistency between the lease and the MOU about internet service, because I think the lease says that Turtle Island will get their own internet service, whereas the MOU says we're trying to incorporate them into our system, and I don't know which way you want to go with that. And that's on page 3 of 13 in the lease under utilities.
Hey, Chris, before you continue, just a point of information. How are we treating these suggested amendments to the lease and the MOU? Because it seems like Stephen's there taking assiduous notes, and also, I don't know if Lisa's expected to keep track of all of this, and we're gonna vote on them as a slate of amendments to these at the end, or what? I just want,
That's a good question. How do you
before
wanna
we
do it?
continue, let's figure out how we're approaching that.
I was just assuming that we would, the two before, what Patrick asked, I didn't think we needed approval. It was pretty common sense, and we took a note on that, and I was gonna do the same with Chris. So if there's something that there's a couple of things that we need to correct, but I was gonna wait until he was done and then ask the board. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Sure.
And I didn't feel like unless you have conflict with Patrick's question, I
No,
didn't
I
feel.
liked what Patrick had to say. I have some argument with some of what Chris has.
Me too.
Yeah.
So, but I was gonna wait until he was done because he sent a long document. Okay.
They're all just out for consideration. I mean, just, the one thing also on Exhibit A, we should change the coloring on the art and music room, because it almost makes that look like it's part of Turtle Island. The way it's shaded. I'm serious. The way it's shaded.
Okay. Okay, so now can we go over them and discuss your amendments or your considerations? Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
The two things I don't agree with are, one, I think it's entirely reasonable to grant 24/7 access to someone you're giving a lease to. And I think they should have that access for a lot of reasons I can think of, and probably many I can't. That's one. And number two is, I think a certain amount of predictability in terms of cost increases is reasonable to grant them. And I think, I like the idea of a 6-month review and adjustment of the payment after a 6-month review, but I think it should be capped. And I was gonna propose something like a 10% cap, a 10% increase based on like actual increased cost of maintenance and operation of the building. And so if we could point to, up to whatever that cost is, actually incurred during that 6-month window, then we could levy that as an additional lease rate. But if we can't point to that evidence, we couldn't do that, and we can't go over 10%. Does that make sense?
It does, but when you're talking about utilities, I mean.
Yeah, I don't like the utility approach. I like just a flat per square foot rate.
Yeah.
On a
But how
monthly
would you measure the cost? I mean, I think most commercial leases do not cover utilities, and this one does.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either. A lot of the commercial utilities covered, what they won't cover is the internet. But they cover the utilities, and it would be simpler for our administrators too, and the price was the estimate that was put in by our lawyers and Stephen, it was the market price. So it was $19 a square foot, and included utilities, so so just hold on a minute. So I agree with what Daniel was saying about predictability, especially in the utilities part, and any adjustment should be done within a year, because 6 months is not even enough time to have enough data to change any of the terms. And I also agree with having a cap, whatever that cap is. So, I don't know, that's, and there were other things, but you didn't bring up a couple of other things that you had put in that document. So any other feedback to that, so that we are all in agreement of what we want to do?
Are we gonna go around and talk?
About
Like-
those specific? Yeah.
So we're
because I
talking
need to give you
specifically on
guidance.
number 3, the rent and how we would increase it, and
The utilities.
we have what Chris had proposed, and then we have what Daniel has proposed, which is a review in 6 months, although there's also a
I'm okay with a year.
1 year. Oh, well, you said 1 year?
I'm okay with a year. yeah.
Okay. And then a cap of 10%. So, I don't know whether,
So let me clarify, my proposal is just a straight increase in the rent based on the CPI, Northeast Regional CPI on the rent. And then I had a separate proposal on the utilities in terms of them paying, Turtle Island paying part of the utilities. So those are two separate things. And so if we just had the CPI on the rent, that could probably take care of the utility issue too.
So I guess maybe the simpler question would be, is there anybody else in the board besides Chris that wants to change the utilities and the price on the lease?
I would just offer I think those are two separate things,
Yeah.
as
I
I'm
do
listening
too.
to this.
I agree.
The lease being tied to CPI is not an unusual term, and we've seen that in other leases. The utilities, I think, is a bigger issue to consider as to how the board would like to address that.
can I ask a question, since commercial leasing is not my forte? Danielle had recommended if, like, in a year, we do a review of increased cost and essentially levy an increase based on essentially supported increases, and is that unheard of? Is that something that is done in commercial leasing? Anybody?
I don't have enough information to really respond to that. I'm not sure how they're structured in a variety of ways. Leases that we looked at were structured every one looked different. So, I wish there was boilerplate.
So your approach in this lease was what you thought made the most sense for our district and
From our attorney's
recommendations.
recommendations. Although I would say that Chris's, the CPI increase is not an unusual addition to the leases. We did see that.
So could we have agreement, we don't need to have a motion, but could we have agreement from the board, at least a raise of hands, that we want to do the CPI?
Do the what, Floor?
It's a
People know what that is.
Construction, yeah, I don't.
It's a consumer price index.
Oh, thank you.
It's an
It's how you
inflation,
adjust for inflation.
it's an inflationary measure.
Yeah,
Yep, I understand.
and Stephen is saying that it's not unusual, so could we all agree by a raise of hands that that is,
Something we would support.
okay, all right. Daniel?
Oh, Daniel has a.
Just as a counterpoint, raising by inflation makes sense when the chosen rent isn't somewhat arbitrary to begin with. And in this case, I feel like it is, we've compared with other leases for commercial space, but as was pointed out by Diane, we don't have a ton of evidence to understand what the increased cost, if any, there is to the operation of the building. And so my proposal gives us a little bit more latitude to increase it up to 10%, as opposed to Chris's, which limits us to the rate of inflation. And I think it allows us to adapt a little bit more to what actual evidence suggests is the increased cost of the building.
Zach, and then Chris.
I would argue that, using inflation is sort of easy standard, easier to understand thing. I think that, also thinking in the longer term, I mean, yes, we have a lot of bargaining power in this situation, but we are also looking, I also want to look a little further down the road. I want to, if we want to do this in Calais and Berlin and, and Middlesex, we want to be a good partner as well. And I think that, I worry that, sort of, getting too nickel and dimey is do we endanger that longer partnership for some small stuff?
Exactly.
I would, in terms of, how would you quantify the cost if there was a cost increase? What would go into that quantification on an annual basis? That's a question to you, Daniel. I mean, because I think it's hard to measure.
Not having had an opportunity to consult with our building and ground staff, what occurs to me is increased trash, increased plowing, maybe potentially a level of service from the town to support increased traffic on the road, increased heat and utilities. Utilities meaning electricity. I just want to emphasize that it should be based on this review of actual costs of operating the building and overage above and beyond what we have experienced thus far. There's been a lot of speculation that this is going to add a lot of costs to the building. I personally am skeptical of that, but if that's the case, it would be nice to be able to look at a review of costs, and I agree, annual makes more sense than 6 months, and point to this and say it's only fair that that your rent go up because it should reflect the additional costs. We're not looking to make a profit off of this arrangement, but we're also not looking to take a bath.
Right.
So there we are.
So hold on a minute, it's Suzanne, because I know you can speak to it. She has her hand up. Thank you, Suzanne.
Yeah, I just want to advise that I have real concerns about trying to attribute cost increases to Turtle Island separate from the whole school, especially with utilities, because heat and electricity go up naturally. It could just be rate increases, it could be usage overall, it could be a cold winter. I would struggle to attribute increases to Turtle Island exclusively. So I have concerns over embedding that in the lease.
Thank you, Suzanne. Right. Ursula, and then Julia has been instructed something. So Ursula,
Julia, her hand up first.
Thanks, Ursula. Is air conditioning still part of this proposal? I haven't been able to.
We don't have, if you read the MOU, there's no air conditioning right now.
I've read various versions of it, so I wanted clarification.
Well,
thanks.
It's a potential.
Sorry?
It's not written out of the MOU, but it would be at Turtle Island's expense, right?
Yes, and they would have to have their units be approved by us, then it would be, and then it would increase. So it's all written in the, I'm not remembering it exactly. But you would have to, you would have to approve even the energy efficiency of that unit, and then there would be a negotiation, so it's not just as simple.
Will we see a final version of this lease before it's signed, after all of the work we've discussed has been added to it, incorporated in it?
You would see a final lease after Stephen negotiates. We would be allowing Stephen to negotiate with Turtle Island, and the lease that would come back to us. So he would go and negotiate with Turtle Island with what we have requested.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would come back with a lease that he has negotiated with, I was gonna say Phoebe, with Turtle Island. And then that is the MOU and lease that we would be approving.
So one of the things that we've talked about in previous discussions, and we've heard a lot from community members about, is prioritizing Worcester children at Turtle Island, especially birth through ages 5. And I don't see that anywhere here yet. Has that discussion taken place? Worcester children first, and then maybe children of district employees?
I don't want to speak for Phoebe, but what they said, and Phoebe and Mark, you guys can correct me, that what they're guaranteeing right now is our pre-K students. And then if the kids have siblings, they would move up into that priority list. They are willing to talk about prioritizing 0 to 5, but we have not made an arrangement with them yet. Is that correct? Just by us? Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
I would push for that to be part of any agreement with Turtle Island.
Ursula, no, made it. Ursula?
So we had a slight diversion from what we were previously
Yes.
talking about, and we hadn't concluded where we were on, what was it? How the rent, it's the rent adjustment. And we had sort of gone around with some approval on linking it to the CPI. And I'm just
And
curious
then
if
we,
that
and then we
still stands.
received some information from Suzanne
They
about.
said not to look at increases because there are so many factors that play into it.
Correct. So, Natasha, do you have a comment towards this, or is it separate, so that?
Separate.
Okay, so can you, do you okay waiting for a minute so we finalize this?
Yep.
Okay. So what is the will of the board, Daniel?
I was just gonna say, in deference to Suzanne, I'm okay with not doing what I proposed. I still think CPI on top of a somewhat arbitrary rent doesn't make a ton of sense, but I guess I would defer to the people in the room negotiating to allow for some adjustment of the lease based on actual cost of operation or inflation, whichever seems more appropriate.
Okay. Yes, Ursula.
Okay, this will probably be my last question on this item. The $19 per square foot, is it an arbitrary number, or was it based on something that our lawyers saw?
We also reviewed going rates, which are all over the place, I will say. Like, it's very difficult to say that there's a specific number, but that number to us felt fair for the facilities that we had in comparison to others. And I would just offer that we also looked at what other schools were charging to their, so there are other districts out there that have similar arrangements. We looked at their leases, and $19 is way above anything that we saw with any other school district. It was generally in the $8 per square foot range for other districts.
Yeah, I also just want to apologize if it felt offensive for me to call the rate arbitrary. And from my point of view, and from what I know of commercial leases, it's also like well above average. So I think we're doing the best we can to make a good deal for the district. I just feel like I heard Stephen say before that they're all over the place, and I just feel like it doesn't necessarily reflect actual costs.
Do we know what their current per square foot cost is? Just curious, you know, in that. So if it's a comparison, I mean, that.
It is fairly competitive, yes.
Chris?
Can you describe more of how the nursing services?
Yeah, can we just, hold on,
Oh,
can
sorry.
we finalize? Sorry. Can we just, what are we doing? Are we doing the CPI, the inflation, or are we listening to Suzanne and saying that we are not gonna do that right now, and when we renegotiate the lease in 2 years?
I think we incorporate the CPI, because costs will go up inevitably, and.
Okay, so we would include the CPI, yes? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Stephen has it in the notes, okay?
Okay.
Now,
certainly
follow up.
Can-
Okay, and then I wanna also I don't wanna be here until 11 o'clock at night, and
Do you have
it's
a
hard to
game
write.
to watch?
We are, I am gonna be turning to a pumpkin at noon, but please, go.
Can you explain how the nurse?
Oh, sorry, Natasha had a question, so sorry, Natasha.
Julia had something.
Yeah, Natasha, you go first.
I have two questions. One, and I just didn't see it specified in the lease, but currently Doty is used for things like town hall meeting and elections. That will that be impacted at all by sharing the building with Turtle Island?
No, Doty still retains the rights in the town to use it.
Okay. And then my second question is, I know that there's information in there about parking spaces. Are we going to be able to get any kind of clarification about what pickup and drop off are going to look like? In terms of like flow of traffic? So not just parking spaces, but how we're going to get the families for Doty and the families for Turtle Island in and out of the building in the morning and in the afternoon.
There was I believe it's within the MOU, it requests the procedures and process for drop off and pickup. So
It's in the MOU?
Yeah.
Yeah. The actual procedures are not,
Procedure.
I don't, like it, right?
Yes, no, they're not there yet. They're requests, so they have to provide the procedures and how the, yeah.
I just wanna make sure.
Okay, and we'll have that before anything is finalized, I'm assuming?
When the proposal comes back, and it will depend, I can't speak for Turtle Island, right? So that is a request in the MOU from us to them. And also for safety, every year, our schools, just because we had to do this at East Montpelier quite a bit with the farming part, before the start of the year, you have to go through all of the drop-off and pick-up. You speak about this. The principal, any of the principals?
I'm not sure which thing you're talking about.
Well, the security, so drop off, there's a lot of coordination that they do. Oh, here's Gillian, at least I know at East Montpelier, especially with when COVID started or when we have farm equipment on the road, there's a procedure of how cars line up, how you approach the building, how you pick up your kids. I don't know how I can't speak at Doty.
That's true for every school.
Every school, it's very, yeah, we need letters.
Takes multiple pictures and emails
Exactly.
and all to make sure that everybody knows what we did a
the
video one year for U32 to help people understand.
Okay, wait, Julia, did you had one more?
I have so many more.
Okay.
I don't think I had anything connected to what was just being said. But I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is it okay if it's not related to the current topic?
No, I think we have moved on that one. Is there any?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you okay with Natasha? Your questions were answered? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay. Julie?
Okay, so this is from much earlier in the meeting, but Stephen, is it correct that you are recommending that the discussion of what happens to Doty 5th and 6th graders goes to our configuration committee?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's what I thought was said, so I just wanted to
Yes.
confirm that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen, how will the nursing services work?
So currently, we don't have a full-time nurse that will be at Doty. And what we said is if the Turtle Island wanted to, other than an emergency. Right.
Absolutely.
That if they wanted to use any nursing services, it would be at a per hour charge based on the nurses per diem, essentially.
And one other thing is, there's a provision at the end about terminating the MOU, which is not necessarily tied to terminating the lease.
I saw that connection. That was, yeah, we should be connecting those two.
They should be connected, okay. Thank you.
Stephen?
Yes.
Connected to my last question, in your view, do you think it's possible for I'm sorry, Turtle Island Children's Center and the 5th and 6th graders at Doty to coexist? Or is it kind of all or nothing?
I don't, so I don't understand. All or nothing, you mean the?
Well, I guess really it's the first part of my question that I want an answer to. The second part didn't make as much sense, but can we host Turtle Island and have 5th and 6th graders at Doty, in your opinion? Is that something that's physically possible?
So I think that's the same answer I gave to Patrick earlier, which is yes, physically possible.
Mm-hmm.
However,
that also changes other programming within the building. So the way that we think about art and music and all of that would be different as well. And so this is why, yeah.
It's going to go to configuration.
That's why if we're, yes.
Thank you. I would just ask for you to clarify with legal or with a licensed nurse about that nursing part, just because I know in partnership programs I've been in, there's been clarity around whether or not the nurse could serve kids that aren't enrolled in the school, because there's an agreement with the school and not. So, and I think it has to do with their licensure.
Right, yes. And we also are beneficial because of the licensure of some of our nurses, so, yeah.
I had a question on the shared spaces, because it's been brought up by the community a lot. The district currently has a policy around building use by non-district activities and groups. And I'm curious if the idea is that building use of any of those shared spaces would follow those similar policies and the procedure and the form that we have.
I would say I don't think this is the same kind of arrangement. The way that we were viewing it in the MOU is that the use of that space would be at the discretion of the principal, essentially, which is sort of kind of building use, is how building use is set, but it's.
I mean, we're not gonna ask them to fill that form out every time they wanna use it.
I think
I
that's
guess
what
that's what I'm
trying to say.
asking,
Yeah.
is that form is long-ish.
Correct.
And asks a lot of questions that I feel like could get repetitive throughout a whole year.
Correct.
So I was curious, are we doing like a modified version of that?
Yes, so that's the idea of the scheduling, is if there is a desire to use that space, that it has to be scheduled through the principal.
Okay, anything else for the MOU? And I'm confused with the statement about the 5th and 6th graders. Because I thought that is your prerogative, and I thought the board is just discussing the MOU, and correct. The board is just discussing the MOU and the lease. You would be making the decision with Gillian on the 5th and 6th graders.
I thought.
You're bringing the question up, we're like, Noah, can you stop texting Julia, please?
He's not texting me, Floor. That's an assumption that is unfair.
So.
My question, I was just confused by what you said. I thought that Stephen is turning the question of 5-6 to the configuration committee and not making that decision on his own. Was that not what I just heard?
I heard that too.
Yes, so, yes, my recommendation was actually greater than that.
Yes.
Right, which is not just that the configuration committee take this conversation up, but that, and I would say based upon some of the changes here, the idea of tabling the agenda item, I think we've gone past that, unless somebody decides at this point in time. But it will take us some time to bring this together as it is. And I think that having the configuration committee have additional conversations about 5th and 6th grade and all of our grades, not just 5th and 6th at Doty, is an important part of this conversation.
Sorry, I'm still confused.
I am.
Could we be unequivocal about saying here that the 5th and 6th grade is staying in place for the year 2025, 2026? Or are we not saying that either?
I think that programming is still a concern for me, is to making sure that, if we leave the 5th and 6th grade at Doty, as you're asking, that changes some of the other programming at the school. And I think that that's a decision that we have to talk with both our principal and the staff there needs to talk about. And so that's how we've made these decisions in the past. Does it make sense?
It both makes sense and also it leaves everyone in limbo, which is
understood.
A fundamental problem, I think, with this debate. And I also, just speaking on behalf of myself, as a member of the configuration committee, I think it in some ways disrupts and derails our work. I see the 5th and 6th grade as needing to be in a larger educational setting than they're in now, and also am troubled by the disruption, and I've heard others say that they're troubled by the disruption in the short term. So it feels like an impasse, I guess.
Can I just add to Daniel's comment really quickly? Sorry, Ursula. We also don't meet, the committee does not meet until June 19th, and I don't think we can wait that long to have a decision.
I thought we discussed earlier that this was outside of the purview of the board to tell administration exactly where to put these kids. What happens if there is a change over the summer in enrollment? Our administrators deal with changes in enrollment all the time, changes in a lot of things that require adjustments and maneuverability. And if we, the board, have told them what they can and cannot do, we lock them into a situation that they can't respond to.
I'm just gonna go. I think that the confusion here is that now we've been told that it's being kicked back to the configuration committee, which I will also say, we keep on saying that it's the role of the administration, but we have an entire configuration committee. So, like, there is certainly some advice and guidance from the board on configuration, and there always has been. So I think ultimately the decision lays with the administration, but I don't think we should pretend that we have no say in any of this, seeing that we're on our second configuration committee.
Yeah, and just that clarification, when we table the other motion, we tabled the other motion because we did not want to do the work of the administrators. So we were going back to our role today, which was just the lease and the MOU. That's what we agreed on. And all we're talking about is the lease and the MOU. The administrators get to move or not move the 5th and 6th graders. That's their, we had moved into this conversation so as far as I know, we're just talking of the lease and the MOU. That was the consequence of all the work that we did, and I thought that we had got there organically all together. And that's where we are. We're just discussing the MOU. Our superintendent gets to discuss that with Turtle Island, come back to us with an MOU and a lease. They get to move the 5th and 6th grade if that's what they think is best for kids. We, as a configuration committee, will talk about the whole, as what we want for middle grades, what we want as a model, what we'll be voting on. But I agree that would derail the configuration committee conversation. What we're talking about right now is just this MOU. At least I thought that what the board was saying is that they didn't want to lose the partnership with Turtle Island, so we were moving forward, and we were not going to tell the administrators what to do.
The board was saying a lot of things, and it's not an either-or floor like you're presenting it.
I'm not presenting as an either-or.
Just let me finish. And so I'm going to move to amend my motion on the approval of the MOU and make it contingent upon the 5-6 staying at Doty for the 2025-2026 year. That's an amendment to my own motion.
Natasha, we don't have a second. So
I second it.
Zach
No,
already
I
did.
had the original second.
Excuse me.
So
Can't be amended without the assent of the second.
No,
Yeah.
no.
you cannot. So I'm going to move to Natasha, who has a question.
So then.
Natasha has a question.
Natasha has a question.
Yeah, I'm still incredibly confused and trying to get clarity. Stephen just said that he wanted to move the discussion about 5-6 to the configuration committee. You're saying it is the administration's decision. So is the configuration committee having a conversation about 5-6? Have you completely taken that off the table? The board does not get to provide any kind of insight or comments to administration to help inform their decision making. Like, I can't be the only person in this room that is confused about what is happening with that part of the conversation.
Daniel, and then Michaelan.
I can't speak for the whole configuration committee. It's my understanding that we are preparing a 5-month process to consider configuration proposals, one of which is probably, I will say probably because it hasn't been explicitly proposed, probably to consider moving at least the 6th grade up to U32. If we were directed by the board, I think probably we would consider this separate concept of moving the 5th and 6th grade, but it sounds like it's the administration's view that that's, I shouldn't say that. I'm against referring that, I think, to us because it feels like a half measure and it feels problematic.
Michaelan?
I think many of us wanted to clarify things by separating these issues, which we did successfully at the beginning of the meeting. So I would like to keep them separate and just continue onward with the motion that's on the table about the lease and MOU. If we want to have further discussion about 5-6, then I would prefer we do it after we take care of this business.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
Diane and then Chris.
So this is why I'm a little uncomfortable with having a final vote on the lease and the MOU, because some of us thought we had differing views as to what we thought happened with the previous one. So if the talk we're gonna have next is to go through what the amendments are and review the amendments to the MOU and that without us really seeing it and reading it, I'm concerned with us giving approval, that's just me, but I'm concerned at giving approval for you to move forward, to do those edits, and then to move to negotiating, because we just saw in action the confusion over what some of us are hearing and taking in and what others are. So I just put that out there for that part of the lease and MOU.
Chris?
So we emphasize and claim to try and speak with transparency in all we say and do, but this kind of sleight of hand that I think I'm hearing about whether or not the 5-6 is moving to Grundy next year is troubling. I think that the understanding was that that would not be happening, and what I'm hearing is that even if we vote in favor of this MOU and the lease, that it possibly could be happening. And I think that that would be a real disservice to our community and undermine a lot of the credibility that we try and build by being upfront and straightforward with our constituents. I have great fear of what I am hearing in the subtle nature of our language. And I would like to have a confirmed and very clear statement whether or not moving the Doty 5-6 to Runley for the 2025-2026 school year is still on the table at this point.
Chris, we agreed that we were not going to tell the administrators. You withdrew your own, even as a resolution, we agreed that we were not going to tell the administrators, and we were just going to move into discussing the lease and the MOU. That was a decision that the board made. Michaelan and then Ursula.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question, but I don't know that.
Yeah, we can, once the question is called to approve.
I'll second for McAllen.
Yeah, so we have a motion and a second to call the question on approving the MOU and the lease with the amendments presented. Discussion.
So I guess to clarify this, when we say approve, it means to move forward with the negotiations with Turtle Island, because there are two parties in this partnership, and they haven't even had a say on what it is. So like we are saying, we've talked about the lease, and we are okay the way it stands, including some of the suggestions we've all made tonight for Stephen to make some adjustments to language around crisis and right things people brought up. I just want to clarify that what we're saying is we are approving Stephen moving forward to negotiate lease and MOU with Turtle Island. That is what tonight's approval is.
Point of clarification.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Ursula, you said that Turtle Island hasn't had any say in the lease and the MOU. Is that true?
No, I
Okay,
would just
sorry.
clarify
Right,
that
yeah,
our
they have.
attorney and their attorneys have been talking
Yeah.
throughout this process.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can I clarify that there is a negotiation in process, and so we have to present
Yes.
a thing to them, and they're going to respond back in typical negotiation fashion?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna get that back and have to look at it,
And
and
that
review it, and have another conversation, and make whatever steps we make then.
Yes. Okay, so any other discussion? Very clear on what they're voting?
Well, first we're voting on the question, right? We have to vote to call the question.
I don't.
Yes.
I think that's true, 2/3,
Yeah,
correct?
2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all those in favor of calling the question, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, a raise of hands because it's really hard to, so we have one. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, yeah.
eight,
Natasha, is your green check mark on up?
7,
Okay.
8, 9. Yeah, so the motion passes. And now let's call the question on the motion to approve what Ursula just explained, or people want to have it explain again? Okay, all those in favor
No, can you do it one more time, please?
Just read the motion.
to read the motion?
Yep.
Lisa, do you mind reading the motion?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you want the mic, sir, please.
Yeah, it's brief. Chris McVeigh moved, Chris McVeigh moved to approve the lease and MOU, seconded by Zach Sullivan.
Thank you.
Can I have a point of clarification?
Yes.
I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Voting on this is completely separate from any discussion around 5-6, correct? Like if we are voting on the MOU and the lease, it is specific just to any decisions about Turtle Island, nothing else.
Correct.
Correct,
That
that's the
is
only.
incorrect. That is not correct. I think what will happen is that the voting on this will take the board completely out of any reconfiguration of Doty to Rumney, and that is the intent of having this separate at this point. That's what I think will happen.
This is precisely why I would never.
Point of order,
If
we've
we have a-
we've
We
called the
called the
question and
sure.
have approved.
Yeah, have approved it. Thank you, Zach. I'm just trying to. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye, or raise your hands because it's going to be hard. So raise your hands. I have 1, 2 online, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. Yeses.
I'd
So-
like a chance to raise my hand, no.
So the motion carries.
Well, you-
And all those, okay. Oh, all those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
No.
So raise hands, please. One, a raise
Heard
hand.
my voice?
Well,
You can raise
so
your.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Natasha.
4, so 4.
Due to the lack of specificity, I think it needs to be clear as to why we're voting no, at least for me. And it is because
Can I join that?
unless I see exactly what it is I'm agreeing to, it's confusing to me, and there's still outstanding questions about fire marshal.
Okay.
Oh, very.
So the motion carried and we can move on. Yeah. So you can, you can make a statement.
All right, so just to be transparent, Gillian and I have been texting during this moment so that I could be clear on what I'm about to say, which is that we will keep the 5-6 in Doty, put the question to the configuration committee about what comes next. However, I just want to be on record as also saying that that will impact programming around arts, music, possibly math, in terms of how we configure those pieces. So I hear what the board has asked, but I want to be really clear that next year, we will keep the 5-6 there while the configuration committee continues its work. However, there will be issues around programming that will have to be resolved, and I don't know how, I will say clearly, I don't know how that will be resolved yet. That will be up to the staff at Doty to be able to do.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure, am I
And that's
clear?
a decision that you and Gillian are making.
Yes, and I just want to, so that you know, we texted that was part of, I don't want you to think that we're nefarious. in that.
Well, why would you say that before the?
Okay, so Julia and McGillian has a question mark in her.
Yep.
So,
I just want to say, Stephen, did you call me Fleur? Am I recognized
Yeah,
by the
Julia.
chair?
Yeah.
Okay. Stephen, I want to thank you and Gillian for that movement and that direction. I think that folks who have spoken up in person and through board correspondence are probably feeling really heard right now. And I think I can speak for a number of creative folks in the Worcester community that they would be more than delighted to help share in the responsibility of crafting a solution to the art and music and all of the other challenges that we're going to face because of this decision. So please call on them.
Thank you, Julia. McGillian, do you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. So now we can, oh, yes.
Comment
Oh,
that
No.
I didn't hear.
I didn't
No,
know.
Stephen had a comment.
No, that was,
Good.
I didn't hear what Chris had said, so.
Oh, I was saying, why wasn't that shared before the vote?
I-
It would have been unanimous, I think.
No, because
Well,
it's,
no,
we are trying to separate the.
No, it may not,
have it.
but-
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was really hard for everybody. Thank you, community, for being here. We're going to move on to the rest of the meeting. And then we're actually going to take a 2-minute break.
Right now.
Right, or a 3-minute break. Okay, so we're going to get started with the board members that are here. Unfortunately, we really need to move through this agenda. We had the student monitoring report. I feel terrible about not doing justice on the student monitor report, so I'm wondering if we should do it later.
I'm going to suggest, as the chair of Ed Quality, so that we can actually do our job as a board when we talk about Ed Quality, that we table this report, but that means you're going to be seeing 2 reports potentially in June. Although, given our new meeting schedule, there may be adjustments to that. But I would like to table at least this report to June. You have had it. It will get probably included in the next packet as well. I would love to invite everybody to make sure they read it and review it and watch our meetings and come prepared to ask us questions so that we can actually have a robust conversation about how our students are doing.
I couldn't agree more. Is the board okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's move into the finance committee part. We have a series of questions, so if we wouldn't mind moving like right, was there any questions on the fiscal update? Suzanne is here with us too. So at least we gotta make sure that we do 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4, and we would do the what? And yeah, and then we can, Suzanne, the capital improvement plan, can we wait until the next meeting? So that we can, I also think it's very important for us to discuss it with Justice, is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so let's move, do you wanna do like a super quick blur on the financial update? Or just ask for questions? Any questions?
Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, seeing none. No, okay, so can I have a motion to accept the annual fiscal management questionnaire? It was on page 96.
I move the board accept the annual financial management questionnaire prepared by the business administrator included in the board packet.
Thank you, Zach. Second by Ursula. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Authorize the superintendent to sign contracts and accept grants for Washington Central.
I move the board authorize the appointed superintendent to sign all contracts and accept grants on behalf of Washington Central Unified Union School District effective throughout fiscal year 2025, 2026.
Second? Thank you, Patrick. Do you have that, Lisa?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Okay. Blanket authorization for board warrants and check orders.
I move the board authorize the blanket authorization for board warrants included in the packet effective through fiscal year 2025, 26.
Second by Ursula. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Like I said, we're gonna review the capital improvement plan at our next meeting, because that is important.
We have to sign, essentially sheet 199. They go with that.
We can bring that back to the next
I
one.
was
and then-
thinking that we would bring it back, is that okay? Because so then we can really discuss it, and you said it's okay, right, Suzanne?
Yeah, I think she's talking about the authorization where it's got all of your signature lines. And we'll bring that back in a nice signing format. It's not good in the packet like that.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Policy committee is second readings.
Yeah, and I move that we adopt policies, the policies that are listed, and it's procurement and conflict of interest, which doesn't have a number, on page 130. B30, staffing and job descriptions, on page 131. Policy A32, board goal setting and evaluation, on page 132. A34, board relations with school personnel, on page 133. And A24, board superintendent relationships, on page 134 as a slate.
Second.
Thank you, Chris, second by Amelia. Any questions or discussion?
Can I ask a super quick question?
Yes.
Can we make this contingent on you guys putting a number on that first policy that is in line with the numbering system that currently exists?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ursa. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
Who seconded it? Sorry.
So we have Amelia. Yeah, that's like, I have to go back to my page.
I
Okay.
just had a follow-up.
Daniel?
Just a quick follow-up question. Are we referring the request to amend the flag raising policy?
Yeah, to the policy committee. Yeah.
We'll take that up at our
We'll take that.
meeting.
Okay, so now we're moving into the personnel. Ursula, do you want to go? Thank you.
I move that we accept the new hire nominations for the 25-26 school year of Catherine Saunders, school nurse, 1 FTE between Calais and Doty. Jessica Moraes, special educator, 1 FTE at Berlin. Jessie Dahl, library media specialist and technology integrationist, 1 FTE, so 0.8 at Berlin and 0.2 at Rumney. Mary Ellen Monday, math interventionist, 1 FTE at Calais, and Rory Woodward, librarian, Calais EMS.
Okay,
Second.
thank you, Zach.
Question?
Yes, go ahead.
Could I have a reminder what the breakdown for Catherine Saunders' position is? Is it 0.8 at Doty and 0.2 at Calais, or is it, do we remember that?
It's 0.4 at Calais, 0.6 at Doty.
Thank you.
Do you want to repeat that so they can hear?
But yeah, so it was 0.4 at Calais, 0.6 at Doty.
Thank you.
Good call.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
So just point of historic fact, Rory Woodard is the daughter of Lynn Woodard, who worked for years at the Rumney Library. And so it's come full circle. It's really kind of an interesting.
Librarian at Calais and EMS, so she's back in the district.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, an excited welcome to all of our
Yeah.
new hire nominations.
It's a pretty.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's one more nomination.
I'm getting there.
Oh, my God. Oh, she's moved on. Sorry.
I move that we accept the long-term substitution for the 25-26 school year, John Doobie, for long-term substitute of social studies at U32.
Second. Thank you, Ursula and Amelia. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, we need to approve the minutes of May 7th. Motion?
Move.
Thank you, Chris. Second by Amelia. All those, any amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the minutes are being moved. The board orders, do we still have battery? Yeah, okay, good. Board orders, who has the precious folder and is gonna do the
In
reading?
honor of
Diane.
Daniel, we have the board orders. Yeah. So we have I move that we accept the board order of a total of $923,549.82.
Second.
Thank you, Keely. Right, so moved by Diane, second by Keely. Any questions, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. The motion carries. I am gonna jump future agenda items and board reflections, move into public comments and ask the public also to be really kind if they wanna speak, because the camera is about to lose its battery and we wanna come back. So just raise your hand and we'll get you a mic. I know you have a teacher voice, but we'll get you a mic.
I promise to be really quick. Deborah Bloom, and I'm the parent of 2 children at Doty Elementary School. I want to thank you all. I was equally as confused during the conversation this evening. But I also just want to recommend, myself being on the configuration committee, that we have a lot of work to do about integrating our 5-6 students now as we think about how we then integrate them into classrooms in the future. And there's a lot of work that we can do with our students currently in how we think about how they play sports together, how they go through their day together, how they come to U32. And we have that ability, we have those resources, it's not expensive. So I think for the board, for Stephen, if I can ask you to be creative with your principals on how we work towards that in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi. I guess I just want to say that as a Worcester resident who's been active in communicating with you all and following this closely, I'm actually quite saddened by what just happened. Just to recap our last month, we were told 5-6 was moving because of space in Turtle Island. Community expressed clear concerns about 5-6 moving and about physical space in the building. We expressed those concerns clearly. Without explanation, we discover we can build a door and make more space in the building. But admin also says we won't keep 5-6 at Doty. The community reaches out confused and upset. The board was clearly not clear on what was supposed to happen tonight. In fact, a revision of the agenda, I believe 4.2.3, was ignored tonight or forgotten. I'm not sure. This meeting was a series of confusion, and in the end, amidst a board vote to approve a lease and an MOU, the admin decides in that moment that they can resolve confusion about the 5-6. But what I heard Stephen says is that's at the cost of Doty teachers to figure out and the expense of Doty students. Concerns about space were raised a long time ago, as long ago as they could have when you brought this whole issue to us in the first place. The community very much expressed those concerns about space in the building, but this process has become so muddied that it was impossible to parse out what we were even talking about. I don't know. I think tonight was embarrassing, and I think Doty students will suffer. I think Doty teachers will suffer. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where we landed. Thanks.
Any other public comments? There's an iPhone. Okay. Jael?
Yeah, so I too feel sad about this experience. I know you guys are all doing such hard work, and I do appreciate all the time you put into it. But I don't think moving kids out of their town is fully in the preview of the administrators. reconfiguring within a building makes sense, but impacting families in such a significant way seems like it really requires much more of community engagement. And I believe there's something within the decision about closing Doty that requires a vote of the town, and whittling away at the classes this way seems disingenuous. And so I do really want to ask that you involve the community. The decisions you make here have real life impacts on people in this community. So just thank you again for your time, and please consider my thoughts.
Thanks, Jael. Okay, I don't see any more hands. I'm looking for a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of residency request to include our superintendent. Is that it? Yeah.
So
Moved by Julia, second by Ursula. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hear none.
I move we accept the administration's recommendations regarding both student residency requests.
Microphone.
You gotta do the whole thing in a mic.
Yeah.
I move that we accept the administration's recommendation regarding both student residency requests.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Diane, second by Keely. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries unanimously.
Move we adjourn?
And Zach moved that we adjourn, second by McKellen, right? Oh, no, Keely, sorry. All those in favor, please signify by going home.
Aye.
Aye.